Hospital porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. And welcome to this, the final instalment in my series of films, UFO Disclosure 2015. Well, we've had a long journey this year, haven't we, you and me? 12 films called UFO Disclosure 2015, beginning at the end of 2014, where I asked, could 2015 be the year of disclosure? Well, it's now the 29th of December 2015. We have barely more than 48 hours left of the year. Unless we get disclosure within those 48 hours, then we're not going to get UFO Disclosure 2015. I will not be opening this bottle of Disclosure champagne this year. So the year that could have been the year of disclosure is not the year of disclosure. So why did that happen? How did that happen? Or, I mean, do we need to ask why it happened? Maybe the onus is on us to explain why disclosure happened if it had to happen. Maybe that is the question we ought to have been asking. Anyway, in this 12th and last film of this series, I'm going to be going through the basically everything that's happened since the last film was made in the world of disclosure. All Stephen Bassett's, all his newsletters and things like that, all the information in there. We're going to be going back into the past, because I think it's necessary to explore the past when it comes to knowing what the present is and then moving on into the future. And I have come to realise that the modern exopolitical disclosure movement is much older than I thought it was. It goes back much further. I'm going to be discussing various news items that have emerged in the last couple of months relating to the UFO issue. And because we've had Christmas and it's New Year, I thought I'd give you the treat. I'd give you a little treat by including a bit of comedy as well. I hope you enjoy that. But of course the big question is, why did you make these films, Ben? What was the point? What was the point when nothing happened? Well, I didn't know nothing was going to happen at the beginning of the year. The future is an undiscovered country. Now I've discovered it, and obviously 2015 is not the year of disclosure. Now Stephen Bassett and several other ufologists made reference to this. He made reference to the fact that 2015 was actually a kind of a pivotal year. It was a window moment, as Bassett calls various times. He says that there are windows of opportunity that open and close periodically. He has this disclosure clock which goes from sort of like 1/4 to midnight to like 5 to midnight, and it was below 1 minute to midnight at some points this year. So, does this mean the window is now shut or it's closing? Or is it still open? That's the question. There has been progress on the disclosure hearing campaign, the congressional hearing initiative that Bassett is involved in Washington right now. That is ongoing. Although there's been no major breakthroughs of the kind of rock star variety that I've talked about in previous films. But there has been a slow, steady progress. Steve is still optimistic. Steve is always optimistic, isn't he? So, what should I do? I mean, what should we all do? Is this the end, or should we persevere? Am I going to be making another series of films next year entitled UFO Disclosure 2016? Maybe after I've watched the X-Files, the new X-Files series is coming out. Until then, we shall see. But anyway, let's go through some of the events that have been happening over the course of the last few months, and let's just see if there's any indication that could shed light on this issue.
So let us begin with the latest developments on the work of Stephen Bassett. Now he is, I think, the pivotal figure within this disclosure culture that I talk about in this series of films, and he has done an awful lot. I mean, contrary to the fact that he hasn't made any major announcements as such, he has been hard at work since October in Washington DC, and he has released papers, media releases on nuclear weapons tampering, why no congressional hearings or campaign questions, because of course the United States is going through its campaign for a new president. When the people elect Hillary Clinton, or if that's the right word, because it is going to be Hillary Clinton, I think, there'll be a lot of questions that need to be known about, and the people involved in these campaigns really should be talking about this. But Steve has produced a sample list of hundreds of mainstream English language articles relating to incidents where vehicles of unknown origin, almost certainly extraterrestrial, have hovered over nuclear missile sites. Intercontinental ballistic missiles were turned off, only had to be turned on again by the site crews after the craft had left. And there's a massive amount of information on this, and a massive amount of evidence. Several people involved in nuclear weapons have spoken out about this, including the book Faded Giant by Captain Robert Salas. If you remember, I met Captain Robert Salas last year at UFO Truths. And UFOs and Nukes, Extraordinary Encounters at Nuclear Weapons Site by Robert Hastings. And there was a press conference hosted by the Air Force in September 2010 on this issue. And many Air Force officers at the Citizen Hearing and Disclosure in 2013 also brought this subject up. So why haven't the top tier network, cable and print journalists put any questions regarding nuclear weapons tampering to the Air Force, Pentagon, White House, or any candidate in the US presidential election seeking the presidency since 2004? And why hasn't there been a single congressional hearing addressing these incidents? And here you have, there's a list of, there's like several dozen papers that Steve has published here, all about the problems that nuclear weapons crews have had with the government has had with the presence of UFOs. There's literally 24 papers he's put in his email. All this information is on the Paradigm Research Group website. And so you have to ask the question, I mean, why is the government not talking about this more openly? I mean, no doubt they're talking about it behind the scenes, but they're not discussing it. I mean, this would really maybe overturn the whole political agenda if one of the presidential candidates, one of the smaller ones like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, began talking about this subject. Either they would the current agenda to elect Hillary Clinton would fail, and that person would become president, or they'd end up, I don't know, having a fatal riding accident. You never know. Either way, I mean, this information has to come out. It's essential. Not least the fact that if UFOs can stop nuclear weapons from launching, they can switch them off. They can switch them on when we don't want them switched on, and launch them when we don't launch them. And there's evidence that in the 1980s, something like that happened in Russia, in the Soviet Union, at a missile silo. Some weapons almost got launched by the presence of a UFO. And the crews were something fiddled with the computers of the launch control, and the crews were desperately trying to shut it down before it launched. God, isn't that frightening? I mean, if this is not a threat to national security and the security of the human race and the planet Earth, then I don't know what is. Now, on the 11th of October, just a couple of days before my birthday, Steve also wrote an open letter to Hillary Clinton. And I think he's done this a couple of times now, because he's been interested in the way Clinton has been hanging around with Lawrence Rockefeller, and has also been reading books on extraterrestrial life. There's a photograph of her carrying one of these books. Now, it goes like this. Dear Secretary Clinton, in March 1993, billionaire Lawrence Rockefeller initiated an extraordinary approach to your husband's administration via the Office of Science and Technology Policy, headed by Dr. John Gibbons. A memorandum from Mr. Rockefeller's attorney, Henry Diamond, dated 29th of March 1993, conveyed a request to meet with Gibbons to discuss the potential availability of government information about unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial life. Rockefeller, a friend and supporter of you and your husband, wanted to meet with the president and inform him there is a belief in many quarters that the government has long held classified information regarding UFOs, which has not been released, and that the failure to do so has brought about unnecessary suspicion and distrust, and that many believe that the release of such information on a basis consistent with national security would be a significant gesture and would increase confidence in government. Thus began the 3-year effort by a notable American to convince your husband to essentially be the disclosure president and end a then 46-year truth embargo on providing the full facts to the American people regarding an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. This effort, which included meetings, reports, briefings, a book, draft letters to the president and more, came to be known as the Rockefeller Initiative. You were aware of this initiative from the beginning, as was a key advisor to the president, John Podesta. You and your husband met with Rockefeller at his Wyoming ranch in August of 1995. Your husband had tasked a close friend, Associate Attorney General Webster Hubbell, to look into the UFO issue at the Department of Justice and elsewhere. He tasked John Podesta, his eventual Chief of Staff, to reform and accelerate the document declassification process. You were kept informed of the ongoing initiative and helped draft a letter from Rockefeller to the President. It is notable that John Podesta, the founder and now CEO of the Center for American Progress in 2002 and 2003, called for the release to the public of all UFO and related documents in government files. The 2004 Governor Bill Richardson, UN Ambassador and Secretary of Energy during your husband's administration, made a similar request for documents pertaining to the events in Roswell, New Mexico during July of 1947. These facts are known from news articles, public records, and most importantly from nearly 1,000 pages of correspondence and documents obtained by researcher Grant Cameron from the Office of Science and Technology Policy via the Freedom of Information Act. Additional relevant documents were released from the Clinton Presidential Library. Madam Secretary, it is your ambition to reach a significant milestone in American history by becoming the first President of the United States who happens to be a woman, or put another way, the 69th female head of state. While this would be an admirable legacy, what the American people need is less legacy and more truth. The people have lost patience with in loco parentis government that treats them like children and candidates with long lists of issues they can't discuss because it is not convenient to their campaign to tell their people because they can't handle the truth. Because you have been introduced to these matters within the context of the White House, because you aspire to the highest office of the nation, you have an extraordinary opportunity and primary obligation to address what is essentially the most profound issue of our time, an issue with a major national security and policy implications. Respectfully, Stephen Bassett, Executive Director, Paradigm Research Group. P.S. Madam Secretary, if you choose to speak truth to power, it is not enough to select those truths which are convenient or safe or self-serving. You must speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and place your fate in the hands of history. Well, that's an excellent letter there from Steve, and again, there's a lot of sincerity here in Steve's words, but as is often the case, he has a capacity for understatement. For instance, he says, this is a quote from Rockefeller, many believe that the release of such information on a basis consistent with national security would be a significant gesture which would increase confidence in government. Well, that's a quote from Rockefeller, but I know Steve goes along with that, and as I've said in previous films, I wonder if that's the release of such information would be consistent with what's known as national security, which is just a euphemism for secrecy to preserve the powers that be in their place. And confidence in government. Well, you see, would it increase confidence in government? Because as I've explained in previous videos, it wouldn't fill me with confidence to know that the government have been sitting on a secret for what's coming close to 70 years now. Longer if you include the free energy issue, which is actually not directly connected with UFOs, as I'll explain later in the film. That would make me wonder what else the government have been keeping from me. That would make me wonder, maybe any confidence I have in them would be misplaced. And Steve doesn't pull any punches here. I mean, he tells Clinton very clearly. He says, Hillary, basically, you have an obligation. I'm not just asking you. I'm saying this is what you have to do. You could become the disclosure president, and that wouldn't that be something? Well, I wonder if the old bag will reply to him. I wonder what she'll say. Dear Mr. Bassett, thank you for your letter. I think you're a conspiracy loony, and I'm not going to have anything more to do with you. I expect she probably will. Now, if you excuse me, I have to go and slip some rat poison into Bill's tea. No, I don't know. She probably will reply. Actually, I mean, I've written letters to my MPs. To my MP, and the most subjects you wouldn't believe, the sort of subjects I talk about on Hapanwo. I've written to them about the 7/7 bombings. I've written them about fluoride in the water. I've written to my MPs about the underground bases and things, and they do reply. I mean, my Westminster MP Andrew Smith always replies. My Euro MP, I don't know who it is now. It used to be. What's her name, the Green Party lady? She always replies. They just say, thanks for the information, I'll give it full consideration. That's probably what Hillary will do. She'll probably reply to him with a polite, thank you, Mr. Bassett, for the information. I will give it due consideration, and when I achieve my highest office in the land, I will make sure I do everything I can to make this information available to everybody. And as old Cameron said to Richard D. Hall, when Richard D. Hall challenged him at one of his when he's standing with the adoring rabble campaigning to be elected. Richard D. Hall said, will you seek to unclose the truth about UFOs? And Clinton and Cameron goes, oh well, yes. He made a big joke about it, and he said, oh yes, of course I will, but I think you'll find that most of these things have rational explanations, but excuse me, there's a pig outside, I have to go and see to. Things like that. And so we'll see anyway, but I'll keep an eye on this and report it in future films, because there will be future films about disclosure, even though 2015 is almost over. So we'll see. Now, Steve has also written about Jimmy Kimmel, the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Now, we know that on November the 5th, Hillary Clinton was a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And as you know, as I've discussed in segments of this video and in my previous interviews with Stephen Bassett, President Bill Clinton, was interviewed by Kimmel on the 2nd of April last year, and on March the 13th of this year, Kimmel interviewed the serving president, Barack Obama. Now, in both those interviews, the extraterrestrial issue was discussed. In fact, Clinton was very, very revealing of it indeed. He volunteered the information about it and talked about how Ryan from Belfast had written to him and stuff like that, and he's made a lot of veiled hints, as Steve has said. The question is, was Jimmy Kimmel going to make it a hat trick? Well, as you can see, Hillary did appear on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Now, I haven't seen all of this. There's two 4-minute clips on YouTube which I've watched, and there's actually no reference to the extraterrestrial president at all. And Steve hasn't. I don't know if Steve has not written yet to inform people that Hillary did discuss UFOs, or whether she would discuss UFOs, or perhaps Kimmel could have done what Richard D. Hall was and said, if you become president, if indeed when you become president, Mrs. Clinton, would you make it part of your priority to release the information on the extraterrestrial presence that's engaging the human race? But as far as I know, that's not happened. He didn't. I've watched as much as I can of this interview from what I can see, and to be honest, it's pretty boring. It's more of a comedy show. I mean, they make a lot of jokes. There's a lot of feminist type jokes about what would you call president? He can't be the first lady. What would you call him? The first dude, the first gentleman, the first lord, etc., etc. Lots of jokes about who picks out the china while Hillary's in China doing negotiations. Bill would be at home picking china in IKEA, etc. Does Hillary sit at the head of the table? Does she have the TV remote, etc., etc.? It's all right if you want cheap laughs, but there's absolutely nothing really of any substance. Interestingly, Hillary and Bill did attend Donald Trump's wedding, and here they are, getting along very well, like a house on fire. Even though they're supposedly political rivals, it's obvious they are perhaps not so opposed to each other as you might think or perhaps expect for two people who are supposed to be on opposite sides of political choice and democracy. So, not much to be said there, unfortunately. Oh god, now this is really weird. And it's a bit silly. It's called Black Knight Decoded. Now, you've probably all heard of the Black Knight, which is this strange UFO that is supposedly in orbit above the Earth. It was discovered by Nikola Tesla, and it's been photographed by various space shuttle and ISS and things like that. Now, what's happened is this video has come out, a very high-budget video, which is only about 10 minutes long, but it has the sort of it's done in the style of a feature film. And it has some quite well-known actors in it, sort of like fairly well-known actors. It's all about this guy who manages to decode the Black Knight, and work out what it means and everything. And then he sends this on the internet, he posts this on the internet, and these black vans with FEMA troops in come and try and pick him up and stuff like that. And he has to do a runner with his little girl, and they go, oh, it's... And then it all gets very slushy because they have to put these symbols on the earth. He makes this kind of firework display on top of a tall building, and this is repeated across the world in various different ways with different styles. And the Black Knight suddenly comes to life, and there's a message that we've all come together and we've discovered peace and love. And isn't it wonderful? And isn't it magnificent? You know, and it's all very utopian. And I suppose it's fair enough that these sentiments are noble ones. But then it turns out at the end, it's made by bloody Pepsi Cola. It's all a big Pepsi Cola advert. I mean, WTF? It's like, oh. This is a kind of like hint at disclosure. It brings out themes that you find in the conspiracy related to the UFO, exopolitics and ufology. So the people at Pepsi Cola have obviously decided, you know, if you want a Pepsi, you might as well cash in on this. Now, this is really remarkable. It's not dissimilar from Bill Clinton speaking out on the Jimmy Kimmel show. Makes you wonder why they've decided to put these ideas in if they're all such nonsense. This doesn't mean that it's... Steve seems quite encouraged by this. I find it a bit tacky, and also dubious. I mean, I don't believe that we can trust Pepsi Cola, the Pepsi Cola company, to actually tell us what's out there and be the advocates of disclosure. I mean, it's all. What's it designed to make you think is you're just supposed to watch this film. It's had over 2 million views on YouTube. This damn movie. You're supposed to watch this very slick, very sophisticated film. Go out and look at the sky and gaze up in wonder and gasp at the awe of the universe and love for your fellow man and the majesty of the stars and what's out there, and think, well, what are we fighting for? Why are we fighting wars? Let's give it up and be brothers and sisters across the planet and join in communion with our celestial neighbours. And I fancy a drink, but I'm not having Coke. Now, this is something else that has come about. It's very strange. Steve thinks it's funny. I don't particularly. It's a comedy sketch from the show called Saturday Night Live, which apparently is an American equivalent of, I don't know, Little Britain or something, or one of these other shows. And what happens is, in this particular sketch, is the FBI are debriefing 3 alien abductees. These 3 people were taken by UFOs and examined by aliens, and they're sort of... How do you describe it politely? I think in American they call them hillbillies, or hicks, or rednecks, or something else like that. They get taken up and they go, and the FBI officers are asking them, so what was it like? Were you fully clothed? And they go, yeah, that's right, I had to. I was fully clothed, but then I had to take my clothes off to have a pee in a bowl. And these guys, I don't think I was dealing with the top brass because they watched me pee in this bowl and they took the pee out and things like that. And it's all a little bit, I think it makes... Now, Steve says this good satire works best when known political figures. This skit succeeds because the contact phenomenon is now universally known in American culture by reports for hundreds of thousands of contactees. The skit itself is built upon court information reported by the contactees. Whoever wrote this script was aware of the content and may even have researched it in detail. Yes, the thing about it is, Steve's probably right here. This was researched in detail, but how constructive is it really? I think Steve says here. He says here also, can one imagine SNL doing a skit making fun of veterans of war suffering from PTSD? No, the government supports and conducts wars. Contactees suffering PTSD? Yes, the government denies the existence of extraterrestrials, which implies contactees are lying or mentally ill. They are fair game. Well, you see, the skit doesn't succeed, I don't think, Steve. It doesn't. It's this kind of thing can't really be constructive. I mean, you're right in the sense that it is about the fact that alien abduction and the core structure of average alien abduction is well known about, and this is basically why perhaps Saturday Night Live chose to use it as this theme, and that's a symptom, not a cause, I think, of its fact it's just so well known. I don't think probably whoever wrote that sketch was meant any harm, but the thing about it is when it's broadcast, whoever doesn't mean to make light, to trivialise the subject, then Saturday Night Live are unknowingly doing these people a favour and supporting them. So nothing really can come out of this. I think nothing good can ever come out of this. I mean, I have the same debates with people about these ridiculous and pathetic UFO documentaries that have been on the TV lately. I mean, there's been some real clangers in terms of the way UFOs are portrayed now on television. It's gone downhill, and it's gone downhill fast. And some people still think, well, that's good, at least the information's getting out there. No, the information is not getting out there. The information is out there already. This is just churning it up and making it difficult to perceive and comprehend. And I think this not only makes light of these people who have real experiences and who suffer an awful lot, like the war veterans you mentioned. And I'm glad you understand that. I think we're certainly in agreement on that. But therefore, I think this is a bad sign, not a good one. Well, the Washington Post have decided they want to cover the UFO issue again. This is just more than 2 years after they did it last time, because it was, if you remember from my radio shows at the time and the films I made, it was Jackie Patru of the Washington Post who did a pretty awful coverage of the UFO Disclosure citizen hearing, and now they've done it again. There's another article here. It's written by somebody whose name is, what's his name? Hang on a minute. His name is Ben Terris. He's a writer from the Washington Post's style section with a focus on national politics in the style section. Oh, wonderful! And maybe that's why they talk an awful lot. They describe Steve as a balding man with expressive eyes that go from blue to green. He has one goal: get the government to admit that it has been covering up proof of alien visits. It's been a lonely battle, but he is I've got to do the voice, haven't I? What's the Washington Post voice? It's been a lonely battle, but he is convinced that the stars are finally aligned for his convoluted theory, which involves the Clintons and their long-time advisor John Podesta, and a now deceased billionaire. They mean Lawrence Rockefeller by that. And he describes here Steve saying, I want disclosure by the New Hampshire primary. That's how Steve talks. And I can make the case that it's going to happen. He brushes crumbs off his black dress shirt and purple tie during lunch at the National Press Club. Bassett, born in 1946, that means he's almost 70. God, he doesn't look that old. I thought he was about 50-something. Hey, Steve, I'm flattering you now, but it gives a basic bio, a short biography of Stephen Bassett. How he has, got this obsessive compulsive tendencies. Oh dearie me, oh God. Steve himself says he does a dissection of this. As I said, this article is entitled UFO Trophers Want to Make Roswell an Issue for 2016. Meet a lobbyist! Now, Steve points out that reporters never write the headlines for their stories, so an editor or someone like that will choose the headline, and he says that UFO truthers is ridicule language. PRG has no interest whatever in UFOs. Well, again, this is kind of that's kind of to do with, it's kind of semantic really, that issue, but it's about extraterrestrials, I know. But Steve objects that he has his own kind of words for things. And he says here that the term truther was pushed forward by the government to counter public dissatisfaction with the investigatory response to the events of September 11th, 2001. So he says here the term has been shifted to other duty. That's probably true. I mean, they want to associate UFOs with conspiracy theorists in general. I mean, that is obviously an attempt to ridicule, to pour scorn on the UFO issue, even though technically, I mean, we are talking about a conspiracy theory here, and I personally am a 9/11 truther, but it's sort of it's obviously, this is not their intention. It's not their intention just to be accurate. It's their intention is to smear. Now the graphic, as you can see here, is a picture of UFOs hovering over Washington DC and levitating people up from the ground, which again is is what you often get from these things. Excuse me. The alien abduction lead graphic is fairly appropriate, though novel. I think it's just another bit of Hollywoodism, I think. The citizens' hearing on disclosure. The newspaper describes it as fake. Well, it wasn't. It was a mock congressional hearing. Now, Steve's really very quite stringent particularity when it comes to language, I think, is justified here, because the term inserting the word fake here, in this particular context, I think again is another time to is another attempt to put people off. It's to cast an image which will make people laugh and ignore the issue at hand. And he says here the term believer is ridicule language. It's not a matter of belief, it's about evidence, and that's true. And again, they do use the word believer over and over again. I've explained in previous videos how it's a term used by skeptics, and it just means somebody who thinks certain things. It's got nothing to do with how they came about by those beliefs, whether it's through science or whether it was through something more silly and stupid. You see what I mean? It is another loaded word. And he talks about Leslie Kane and her work and what she's done. She's obviously a rival for the PRG. Actually, I didn't know about that, but apparently she is. I mean, I think she's done some good as well. Her book is very interesting. Do you think they'd be on the same side? And he does make. He says here Steve says the most important reportage here is that this article addresses the Rockefeller initiatives. Those two paragraphs make the article worth the time and effort to put into it for an extensive review of the Rockefeller initiative, etc. So that's an interesting point. They do mention the Rockefeller initiative, and they do. Some parts of this article are vaguely factual, I must say. But as Steve correctly says here, the Washington Post still has a long way to go before it repairs its historical failure to challenge the government-imposed truth embargo on the extraterrestrial presence. It is hoped that this failure is based upon an elitist, stubborn resistance to the paradigm shift and not the result of conclusion with national security structures going back to the 1950s. Whatever the case, history will not be kind. One wonders if the Post's owner, Jeff Bezos, presently the fourth richest man in the world, is aware of and supports this failure. Maybe someone should let him know. Well, the thing is, I mean, I think it is the... Steve says here that it's elitist, stubborn, stubborn resistance to the paradigm shift, but I think it is the collusion with national security structures going back to the 1950s and before then. I've never heard of Jeff Bezos before. He may be the fourth richest man in the world, but I don't think he's the fourth most famous. Would he be allowed to run what's called the newspaper of record in the United States, which is similar to the Times in Britain? It's one of these very respected publications. Would he be allowed to run something like that if he wasn't in the pockets of those who are part of this breakaway civilization? I doubt it, quite frankly. I doubt it very much. So have a look at it anyway. Have a look at the actual article and read through it, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It certainly wasn't as bad as the one they did on the Citizen hearing. And Steve, as always, likes trying to make the best of it. It's hard to say. It's certainly not as bad as that Saturday Night Live thing. I mean, that was really terrible. So, see what you think. So the question has to be, where do we go from here? Steve's last newsletter of the year. It's a summary of everything that's been achieved. The Twitter messages to the congressional offices, the reporters and producers that have been made aware of this issue, the various media spots that Steve has had, including the one in the Washington Post I've just been discussing, and of course those bizarre interviews on the Jimmy Kimmel show. There was Hillary Clinton's domestic bliss stories, but then before, which weren't really very significant or a big disappointment, but there was Obama talking about UFOs when he was interviewed in April. That's very, very strange. I must admit, Steve is onto something there. And he says, all of which is to say that even amidst the media focus on terrorism at home and abroad, and the seemingly endless presidential campaign, the disclosure advocacy movement has still got the attention of the powers that be. Well, yes, but I'm sure the ET disclosure movement has the attention of the powers that be, but probably Steve and I might differ in the way that attention is sort of projected, or what it means and its implications. Now this is something I'll come on to later. I've discussed before, but what are the powers that be planning on doing? Are they going to go along with this? Do the powers that be have this image for a future of UFO disclosure? That's the question. I'll come to that later. But I mean, in the best traditions of Christmas and Charles Dickens's Christmas Carol, we're basically dealing with the ghosts of Christmas present and the ghosts of Christmas is yet to come. But we haven't dealt with the ghost of Christmas past. Now, this is an interesting thing. Something that I didn't realise until quite recently, that the modern disclosure movement, Greer's disclosure project, what Steve is doing with the Paradigm Research Group, the Citizen hearing, etc., 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 this modern disclosure advocacy movement is not the first one. And there are instances in the past where individuals and organisations have attempted it before. And I think maybe if we look at the past and learn what happened in the past, we can maybe then look to the future and be better prepared for what's to come, and will make future disclosure more likely. So, will 2016 be the year of disclosure? Well, was the years in the past the years of disclosure? Obviously not. If so, what went wrong there, and what went right, and who were these individuals behind it? We shall now explore that issue. Since we've come to the end of 2015, this year of disclosure, it was going to be the year of disclosure. Okay, it's not the year of disclosure anymore. But let me just take you back in time, actually, because 2015 is not only the year when there has been no disclosure, unless something can happen in a couple of days or hours after I upload this film, but it's also the 40th anniversary of something else, and I thought we did something very, very important in the annals of disclosure, which I thought we would discuss. This is not very well known within the UFO community, and it really ought to be, because this is a very, very important part of our history. Now, we're going to go back 40 years in time to 1975, and we're going to go here to what you're looking at in front of you is Grenada. Doesn't it look beautiful? Grenada. It's Grenada is a little island. It's a little island in the Caribbean, and it's famous for its fine weather. Like many places in the Caribbean, it's famous for its fine weather. Its long, clean beaches, friendly people, stress-free lifestyle, and you can see here on it. Doesn't it look beautiful? I just want to get onto that beach and get me swimming trunks on and dive into that sea. Look at it. Yeah. It is. I mean, people I know who've been. I even know someone who comes from there, and they say it is a beautiful, beautiful place. But it's a very popular tourist destination, of course. I mean, in fact, cruise liners can be seen moored in the harbour most days of the year. But you wouldn't look at that and think what it might be behind the scenes, because there's nothing manifest there which reveals the truth. The truth is that this little island is one of the most significant places in the history of exopolitics. You wouldn't believe it, would you, to look at it? And we all know, I mean, I've been talking about this now all year in these various films, about how there's this dedicated, widespread movement, which I'm a part of, even though I'm in two minds about the whole thing, which is campaigning for governments to declassify secret information on UFOs. Disclosure. And we all know in 1990 we had Dr. Stephen Greer. He began the Disclosure Project, and he was helped by people like the Apollo astronaut, Dr. Mitchell, the sixth man on the sixth man who was supposed to have walked on the moon but actually didn't. And of course he's been on the TV all the time, Greer, hasn't he? I talked about Greer in the last thing. He did a live show that I went to, and there was that press conference at the National Press Club in Washington DC. And of course, go forward to 2013, and there was a citizen hearing on ET disclosure, organised by Stephen Bassett, and it all looks very modern, doesn't it? It all looks very recent, and most of us can remember back to 1990, unless you're really young. Not that I'm old, of course, but these modern attempts at gaining state UFO transparency are not the first. And it's actually, I was really surprised when I found this out, but a very similar initiative was launched in 1975, and it was launched here in Grenada. Now this chap here is someone who really deserves a much more prominent place in history than he has. He's called Sir Eric Gairy, and he was the first Prime Minister of Grenada. And he really is really quite remarkable, because this is the man behind the 1975 original Disclosure Initiative, and it took place on Grenada, and this was the man behind it. Now he was a popular leader. He was known as Uncle by his people. It was his nickname. He was a national hero, and he'd been hard at work from 1949 onwards to campaign for Grenada to become independent, because at the time, and for the previous century and a half or so, it had been a British Crown colony. And so he worked his way up through the political system. He joined the colonial government, and he was an active trade unionist as well. He believed in things such as women's rights, the welfare of children, environmental protection. He supported the local fishing industry, things like that. These things made him a popular leader, a man of the people. And eventually, in February of 1974, just a month after the Bedouin Mountains incident, interestingly, he became the new sovereign nation's first Prime Minister. And he made a lot of friends. But he pursued another policy that really sets him out as unique. It marks him out as totally unique among statesmen, apart from the Right Honourable Paul Hellyer MP, Minister of Defence for Canada, who I've spoken about before. Because with its independence, Grenada was offered a seat at the United Nations, and Sir Eric immediately used that permission to launch a project for the official UN recognition of the UFO phenomenon. And he did this in a very dedicated way. For four whole years, he spent a lot of his time doing this. He held endless meetings with the UN Secretary General at the time, a man called Kurt Waldheim, Austrian chap, and he invited some of the most prominent figures in ufology to join him at the UN. Now here's a photo actually of Sir Eric Gairy, the man on the left, and here he is with none other than J. Allen Hynek, Jacques Vallée, and Colonel Larry Coyne, discussing UFOs at, you see the United Nations, there's the logo behind, and they're obviously here at a conference of some kind, talking to an audience. Very, very interesting, very interesting document indeed, this photograph. Very interesting indeed. Now, on Thursday the 12th of October of 1978, Sir Eric Gairy gave an address to the UN General Assembly in which he said this: Grenada is now identified the world over with efforts to get the greater powers to share information on the phenomenon of unidentified flying objects. mainly because of the persistence with which we have been raising this matter in the General Assembly since 1975. The subject of UFOs is of sufficient importance for it to be raised again this year and for us to seek the support of member states. An investigation into this phenomenon might make a significant contribution towards the well-being of the planet Earth, as well as towards man's better understanding of himself and his purpose on Earth. Why should man be precluded from information on UFOs? A matter of great interest and importance. Great forces are at work in support of our efforts to have the United Nations play a more general and central role in the matter of research and dissemination of information of the UFO phenomenon. Sir Eric Gehry went on to propose that the United Nations should declare an International Year of the UFO. I mean, they do that, don't they? They have like International Year of the Child, International Year of the Environment. And he suggested one year, he thought 1979 should be that year, International Year of the UFO. And he wished to establish a global centre for UFO studies on the island of Grenada itself, his own country. And this is almost unbelievable, but Sir Eric actually spoke at the first ever International UFO Congress in 1977. Now this is a remarkable thing. I mean, a lot of you who are listening to me now and watching this program, you know about the International UFO Congress. It's been running... I didn't realise it was this old. It's been running since 1977, and of course it's still going today, and some of you may well have attended it. In fact, I know some of you watching this program have probably attended it at some point. Look, the very first event, the very first event of the International UFO Congress, it was actually in Acapulco, Mexico, not in Arizona or in Nevada, like it has been Laughlin, Nevada. It was in Acapulco, Mexico. But he spoke there. Sir Eric actually spoke there, and this, I think, is the only time a head of government has ever addressed a UFO convention. Could you imagine David Cameron speaking at Probe? Can you imagine? Could you imagine Barack Obama coming along to the Exopolitics conference? I don't think so. Somehow. Gehry wanted to host the 1979 International UFO Congress, which he planned to be the International Year of the UFO, on Grenada, and he even had the Grenada post office issue a set of commemorative UFO stamps, and here they are. Isn't this not incredible? Imagine seeing this on a stamp. Grenada, $2 research into UFOs. The quest to discover more about UFOs and related phenomena. Isn't that amazing? And he talks about here, this is a commemoration poster with a stamp on it, celebrating the 32nd regular session of the General Assembly of the United Nations and Sir Eric's speech on the matter. It's really quite incredible, isn't it? It's really... I'd love to see one of those on one of my letters. I don't know. Are any of you into stamp collecting? Have you got this one? So Gehry took the subject very seriously indeed. He staked his reputation on it. I mean, he was risking losing the support of his people, which would inevitably end his political career. He'd have been taken down. He'd have been voted out, deposed, whatever. It would have destroyed him. But he intended to go ahead with this and be honest about it and see if his people went along with it. And that's a question. That's a question, isn't it? I mean, I've never been to Grenada. I certainly don't live there. I don't know if anyone listening to this is actually lives on Grenada or is a Grenadian person. Would the average Grenadian in the street object to their Prime Minister jetting off to talks in the United Nations and congresses full of UFO believers? Would they object to their taxes being spent on flying saucers and aliens? Because from what I can see, Sir Eric's extraterrestrial interest did not adversely affect his political standing. That's the thing. I mean, of course, unfortunately, other more earthly matters soon would, but I'll come to that in a minute. But it's an interesting aside, right, that concerning the UN and the UFOs, and that what you see here in this picture is actually the UN building in New York. But this is not the only time Sir Eric's UFO initiative, right, is not the only occasion that the United Nations has brushed up against whatever is out there. Because in 1989, a lady from New York called Linda Napolitano reported that she had been abducted. She'd been abducted by aliens from her bed, and highly unusually, this abduction had witnesses. This is very, very strange. One of the witnesses was none other than a man called Javier Perez de Cuellar. Now, he was a former UN Secretary General. And of course, there's another occasion too, because when Ronald Reagan spoke sometime in the 80s at the United Nations, he actually said, he said twice, I think he mentioned the alien threat. He said, our differences between us would vanish if we were faced by an alien threat from outside our world. Isn't that odd? Isn't that an odd thing to say? But Ronald Reagan actually said that. So, I mean, it all went very well. I mean, Sir Eric's work at the United Nations was extremely productive, it seems. The UN took him seriously, his own people took him seriously, the representatives took him seriously, the ufologists were invited along. And one of them was Antonio Cuneos was there. I remember he said he went along. He's the guy who spoke at the Citizen hearing in 2013. It's perfectly feasible, because what I heard is I came across an article that said that Gary had a meeting with the US President at the time, that's Jimmy Carter, and they met and had a meeting about UFOs, and that is feasible, because Carter is an out-of-the-closet UFO witness. Now, this is interesting, because this is an important legal precedent which Steve Bassett knows about, and this could be useful, considering what he's doing now, because on December the 18th, 1978, the General Assembly convened and passed resolution number 33/426, and it stated, Member States must take appropriate steps to coordinate on a national level scientific research and investigation into extraterrestrial life, including unidentified flying objects, and to inform the Secretary General of the observations, research and evaluation of such activities. Now that's very, very interesting, because it didn't just say extraterrestrial life, because if it just said extraterrestrial life, then they could just be talking about SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, telescopes pointing at the sky, the stuff that Nick Pope is currently into. But no, they did say including unidentified flying objects. It's there in black and white. It can't be denied. This is an amazing thing to happen. But unfortunately, after that, disaster struck. It couldn't have been better timed. On the 12th of March 1979, Sir Eric Gary was in New York having another meeting with Waldheim when he received devastating news. His principal political rival, this man, Maurice Bishop, had seized power. He'd actually staged a coup in the early hours of the morning and had deposed the existing government. Maurice Bishop was leader of a party called the New Jewel Movement, which was a Marxist-Leninist revolutionary group supported by Cuba. In fact, there's several pictures of Maurice Bishop and Fidel Castro together, best buddies. So Bishop had taken power. He'd got hold of arms which had been smuggled into the island in barrels. He got hold of weapons, given them to his people, and they basically seized power. They'd overpowered the police, and they'd seized power on the island. And Bishop immediately declared himself Prime Minister of Grenada and suspended the island's constitution, the one that Gary had negotiated in 1974 on the Day of Independence. One of the first things that Maurice Bishop did was he outlawed Gary's party and exiled his predecessor. He put a stop to all elections. And the fact that Gary was now exiled means that he was banned from returning to his own country, and he's basically stranded in New York. And his life was in danger, because Bishop had allies in America. There was a communist group called, I don't know what it's called, but it was led by a guy called Mario Marcel Salas, and they said they would assassinate Gary. They put basically a contract out on his life. So Eric, he had to watch his back. He had to basically go into hiding. And of course this meant he had to put his UFO project aside until he had sorted out this mess in his homeland. That took over 5 years. Now, predictably, the propaganda of the Maurice Bishop regime in Grenada. This is bound to happen, but it said it included the smearing of Gary's character because of his belief in UFOs. Basically, one of the things that Bishop said was that Gary's belief in UFOs was proof that the former Prime Minister was mentally defective and he needed to be ousted, and so that justified the coup because Gary was basically nuts. In fact, Sir Eric Gary was actually, he wasn't, see, he's no more crazy than I am, and I'm not, am I? Am I? But no, the Caribbean actually tends to throw up these eccentric characters. There's a lot of them there. It's a part of the world which is known for its mavericks. People like Bob Marley and etc. And so there's a great tradition in avant-garde behaviour and ideas in the Caribbean. And so Gary was just one of these people. Now, it all went a bit crazy after that, because in 1983 Bishop was himself ousted by his own Deputy Prime Minister, Bernard Cord. And the first thing Cord did was kill him. He killed Bishop. He organised his own coup against the Bishop regime and killed Maurice Bishop. But then the Cord regime didn't last long, because the United States itself then invaded and deposed Cord. So Grenada was under American occupation for a short time, like Iraq was. And in that time they subsequently restored the 1974 Constitution and basically said, well, Eric Gary could now come back to Grenada. I'm sure he's very pleased, but his allure was gone. Eric Gary, he ran for election a few times, but he never gained office. He was basically, I think he was just tired, and maybe the people were fed up and they changed their mind and things like that. It often happens with old statesmen. They get past it, maybe, which is that's not a criticism. That's just the way things are. But he did remain interested in UFOs. But unfortunately, by 1984, by the time of the end of the communists in the communist regimes in Grenada, the momentum had been lost, and Gary never went back to his UN UFO initiative. He died in 1997 at the age of 75, and the story appears to end there. Now, in 2010, this amazing article was published on the BBC Caribbean website. So you can get it now. It's been archived, so it's quite easy. It's not hard to find if you Google. But it's pretty incredible, because this new evidence came to light when the UK released its Ministry of Defence UFO files. Some of them anyway, not all of them. So these are files now freely available in the National Archives. These are not top secret files, despite what some people claim. These are merely mildly confidential files, maybe akin to the medical records at my old hospital. They're not top secret. But they do indicate that the British government was keeping a close eye on Sir Eric's UFO activities. Now, these are documents that there's a lot of documents that consist of messages, basically communications to and from the UK's UN mission and the government in Parliament. And these have been documented by Antonio Huneeus, who actually covered the event at the time. He met Sir Eric Gary personally, as I explained. One of the documents is a restricted telex, and it's dated 1st of December 1978, and it says this: Ministers have expressed the view that since agreement to set up such an agency about UFOs would reduce the credibility of the UN, we should oppose it. You should be guided accordingly, seeking whatever support you can, particularly among the 9, that's the Western European UN members. The British delegation does not think that the establishment of an agency for researching into unidentified flying objects is appropriate to the functions of the United Nations. We consider the existence of such an agency under UN auspices would be an unjustifiable drain of UN resources. We remain firmly opposed to Grenada's resolution on UFOs. Now, that doesn't suggest a cover-up per se in these documents, but I do wonder what lies in those secret archives that hasn't been released. Were they being honest about their motives? It seems strange to make such a fuss about this just because of, was it credibility? things like that. I mean, does it really matter that much? Why send it by restricted telexes? Now, the fate of the Gary initiative is, I suppose it is worryingly familiar. I mean, I bet some of you listening to this now have already sort of made a parallel, haven't you? You sort of just kind of, you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Because, yeah, this sounds, it's all very, very, it's almost like a repeating story to modern ears, because what happened after the May 2001 Disclosure Project press conference, what happened a few months later in September? Of course, 9/11 went down, and as Greer and Bassett have said this, it derailed the impetus that had been achieved during that amazing event in May in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club. And some have actually wondered whether there might be a connection between the two events, and so do I. Now, there may be many reasons why 9/11 was carried out. We don't know. This could be one of them. It could be just to derail the Disclosure Project press conference. But what I'm saying here is, does that automatically mean that Maurice Bishop's coup in Grenada in 1979 was engineered for the same reason? And I doubt it, actually. I doubt it. The political struggles faced by Sir Eric in his country are very well documented. It's actually more to do with the internal politics of the Caribbean, the battle between communism and capitalism, which were in turn supported by bigger. This was during the Cold War. The Soviets were very keen on the communists, and they were propping up Cuba. America and its allies were trying to put a stop to it, etc., etc. That's all well documented, and what happened in Grenada is simply a part of that power struggle. I mean, and another motive was revenge. I mean, what happened was Sir Eric Gary, according to Bishop, Gary killed his father. Well, he ordered his militia to murder Maurice Bishop's father, and so it was personal. Bishop wanted to get his own back. However, I mean, just because this was not carried out in order to derail the Gary initiative does not mean that the keepers of UFO secrecy would not have hesitated to take advantage of that situation, even if they hadn't made it happen. And the same goes for 9/11. Even if 9/11 was not connected to the UFO cover-up, the people who are covering up UFOs would still have used it. This is the thing. I mean, sometimes not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes people are just lucky, and sometimes the good guys are lucky. Sometimes the bad guys are lucky too. And they'll just say, "Well, right, let's exploit this situation. Let's strike while the iron's hot. Let's shut this Gary fellow down." Do you see what I mean? So it looks like if 9/11 and the Gary initiative were both, I mean, 9/11 was an inside job, I know, but it wasn't necessarily to do with UFOs. But if the Maurice Bishop coup was not an inside job, it was, as it seems to be, I think. But if this breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan calls it, has been on the winning streak, how much longer can their serendipity last? That's the question. That's why I remain hopeful. Anyway, Hapanwo TV viewers, I hope you will pay homage to this unsung hero of the exopolitical movement and the quest for disclosure on the UFO phenomenon, Sir Eric Gary, Prime Minister of Grenada from 1974 until 1979, and somebody who really, really wanted to get the truth out about UFOs. So we continue our blast into the past now with a personal story of mine concerning my own involvement with UFOs, and that is this book. Believe it or not, this is my first ever UFO book. Well, it's actually not my first ever UFO. It's not the book that I actually had, but it's another one. It's another copy of the same book, and it is by Osborne Books, and I bought it from the London Science Museum when I was a little kid. When I think I was either on a school trip or I was there with my mum and dad. I can't remember. I was really little. But it's called All About UFOs: The World of the Unknown by Osborne, and it's one of a series of
a whole series of books here, Ghosts, UFOs and Monsters. And I've already got the Ghosts ones as well, which at least I used to have it anyway. And there's several other basically children's science books which you can buy for kids who are interested in various subjects. And now this is a very old book actually. It goes into several cases, some of which I've heard more about since and some I've not heard about. This is old. It was published in 1977. And it's always worth looking at older books. I'll tell you why. Because there is information missing from newer books which you often find in older ones. So if you ever come across a book in a second-hand bookshop and it's a really old one about UFOs or something, get it, because it'll probably contain stuff that's not present in modern publications. And this goes into all kinds of things. It's basically aimed at little kids, which I was when I bought this. And these are the different types of UFOs, and there's the Mount Rainier sighting there by Kenneth Arnold, and that's the beginning of the UFO kind of thing. And then it talks about the ancient aliens and various interesting events such as the Washington invasion. It gives you just a list of various UFO places. You can see they're seen all over the world in various years when there were lots of them. That's the Lonnie Zamora sighting. There's a famous photograph of the objects that Lonnie Zamora found there, sitting on the ground when he had his encounter in 1964. A little brief introduction to Project Blue Book. This is the 1976 sighting by Lieutenant Parvez Jafari over Tehran, Iran. He took off in his fighter jet to intercept an aerial object which then caused his aircraft to malfunction. Almost exactly the same, very, very similar to the experience had by Milton Torres in 1957 over the North Sea. And it mentions the North Sea, of course, is here. And this talks about, believe it or not, there was an incident at Bentwaters in 1956. That's a long time before the famous 1980 encounter. A long time before then, there was another encounter there in 1956. Of course, encounters in space, UFO photographs taken by astronauts in space. A very big thing nowadays, especially now. There's much. Now I was talking earlier about. I will be talking later about Tim Peake. Let's get damn continuity error. Forget that. About Tim Peake and his possible encounter that he's had with the International Space Station goes back a long way. Ever since man first flew into the heavens in these rockets, they have had these strange encounters here. Now these are various aircraft that I've heard about. This is a kind of a drone. This is a type of early helicopter drone. This is the Avro car, which is saucer shaped. Although that got about 3 feet off the ground, and that was it. This talks about UFOs UFOs on the screen. These are spacecraft, such as Star Trek, War of the Worlds, and there's I think it came from outer space, and this tells you how to make a fake UFO. This is interesting, right? Hunting and faking, and it's part of the same chapter. This is your UFO report form, and it gives you some ideas for sky watching, tips for sky watching, and then this tells you how to fake a UFO, and there's some examples here where they go out and actually do it as part of the project for this book, and you can see here are some fake UFO photos, and these ones are all actually fake as well. This is the IFOs, the one which Jenny Randalls is so keen to write books and books and books about. These are things that are UFOs that never were. You think they're UFOs and they're not. And there's something else you've mistaken. You think that they're UFOs and they're actually common objects which you think are unexplained. And there's the bit about life in outer space, going into the old this situation with SETI and things like that. It basically goes into the SETI Institute and stuff like that. And this is interesting. This is something you don't get in normal UFOs, because it speculates what it might be like on another planet. And because you may be familiar with the Kelly Hopkinsville's case. There was an event here, which was in 1955. A farming family in Kelly Hopkinsville, Kentucky, USA, came across some strange things approaching their house. Now there was a landing of a different UFO, so we assume they did see a UFO landing in the distance, but so we assume these creatures came from it. We don't know specifically if they were connected to the UFO,
But these little brown creatures, these little elf-like creatures, actually started as harassing their house, knocking on the windows and doors, peeking in through the windows, trying to climb down the chimney, things like that. One guy tried shooting one of them, and it didn't hurt him. And this speculates what planet these creatures might have come from. And there's some more even weirder creatures here, as you can see. Now this page is interesting in the sense that what it doesn't say, not what it does. This speculates what kind of craft these creatures might have travelled all the way from their planet in. Although, as I say, they may be interdimensional creatures, and it does bring up the possibility that these are interdimensional. But assuming they come from other planets in a starship, this could be the starship they'll travel in. And it looks to me more like a thermometer you put in your mouth when you're sick, to be honest. But it's hiding behind the dark side of the moon, so no one from Earth can see it. These saucers, the flying saucers, are like the landing ships that come from the big starship. Now, according to this, it runs off nuclear fusion power. This briefly deals with the Betty and Barney Hill case. Now, how a flying saucer might work. This is the interesting bit. This is a cross-section of a design for a flying saucer which could actually work. This is a speculation about what a flying saucer might be. There's these little Kelly Hopkinsville goblins inside. These little Kelly Hopkinsville goblins, they're called. This is interesting here because it says here, excuse me, air is drawn in through the intake at the top and air is forced out at the bottom. So it's kind of a jet engine powering this. And there's fuel tanks. It's like a jet aircraft, basically. It uses electromagnetic forces to move air on the jet propulsion principle. Another theory is that saucers propel themselves at super speeds by producing a powerful electric current to link with magnetic fields in space. I know this is meant for kids, but surely they could bring up the anti-gravity ideas. Why is there no mention of anti-gravity? The concept of anti-gravity existed in 1977 when this book was made, when this book was published. Indeed, I mean, the idea is goes back a long way, and its connection to UFOs was noticed in the early days because there was anti-gravity electrogravitic projects at work. What we have here is essentially some kind of jet engine or electro-aerodynamic thing. I mean, this is where electric fields actually move the air, like that strange machine which rises into the air. You might have seen it demonstrated on Nick Cook's The $1 Billion Secret, or the UFO, the truth about UFOs, where it's strange. I've seen one of these demonstrated at Probe. It's powered by ion wind, and there's something similar for ships at sea where it uses its magnetohydrodynamic propulsion, where you get like a big magnetic field which pushes the water through these ducts, which drives the ship forward. But why no mention of anti-gravity? That's the question. And look at this here. UFOs, this is the most interesting and amazing bit of all. This is why you've always got to look for the older books. UFOs, fact or fiction? It's best to look for a simple explanation, at least I didn't say rational, before jumping to the conclusion, I've seen a UFO! The chart on the right is based on information from the US Air Force Blue Book sightings. It shows that UFOs can be put down to wrongly identified familiar objects, and undoubtedly many unexplained sightings could be put into the explained category if more were known about them. What of the people who believe they've met visitors from space, etc.? What's interesting here is that it's categorised. This is based on Blue Book data, apparently. It's categorised them into 4 segments. 27% is aeroplanes and balloons. 23% meteors, artificial satellites and other near-Earth space objects. 27% astronomical, that is stars, planets, other astronomical objects. That includes things like comets and galaxies, etc. 23% unexplained. 23%? Because if you read any modern book, it tends to say maybe you're about 2 to 3% unexplained. So where did the 23% come from? I mean, everyone seems to add more and more on, make the unexplained sightings as small as possible. If you go to a Bufora conference, they'll say, oh, it's not 99.99% of sightings can be explained. 99.999999% of sightings can be explained. There's almost a competition to whittle it down as much as possible. Because I understand the need to dismiss stars and planets, meteors, aircraft, balloons, etc. I understand that necessity. But the problem is, as I've said before, if the levels of unexplained sightings are being wrongly misrepresented, we've got problems. And as I say, you will not find this in a modern book. This talks about the amazing world of UFOs, and there's various photographs and things, which is worth. And there's things about galaxies and stars. And this is just the index here, and there's various organisations you can contact. It mentions Bufora. There's the International UFO Registry. I don't know how many of these. There's FSR. Some of these things. Some of these QFOS is there as well. Care of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, Chicago. Now, some of these organisations are still running. Some of them are not. But this is an interesting book, and I'm glad I found it. I got it off a stall in Probe, at the last Probe, and I lost my own copy during the many years it's been since I read it, and I wanted to get hold of it again because I remembered all this stuff that I just mentioned to you, all these strange anomalies that I've mentioned to you, and I thought, if only I could get hold of that damn book. And then I got hold of it. I tell you, this cost me quite a lot. I won't tell you how much, but it wasn't cheap because this is a rare book. I don't know if you can get it on eBay or anywhere like that, but anyway, I've been through it with you anyway, so you've seen what's inside it. It's not in print anymore, obviously, so you need to get a second-hand copy for it, and they're not cheap. But it's just if you see any other books on UFOs that are old, don't dismiss them because they're old. Don't think, oh, because they're old books, there's not going to be anything there I've never heard of before. Because I've read these new books on UFOs, these modern ones that have just come out, and they're not going to omit anything that's in previous publications, are they? Well, they will. You see, that's the point, and that goes for all subjects on the esoteric. I mean, you may have read my article, on the Panwo blog called "The Houdini Code." If not, please do. Because I came across a 1983 edition. The UFO was called the Reader's Digest Encyclopedia of the Unexplained, and it contained a massive amount of material, and including some very, very different stories on some subjects, particularly Harry Houdini, that you do not find in newer publications. So please do bear that in mind if you're ever looking for a good book on UFOs, the paranormal, or conspiracies. Now, this is something indirectly related to the UFO disclosure issue. It's also connected with the Keshe Foundation video I made. I'm including it as part of this this video on UFO disclosure because I think it deals with one of the key issues related to the disclosure issue for reasons I've explained. It is all to do with free energy, and what happened was, of course, a few months ago we had Keshe Foundation's Magrav power invention. It was published. I know a few people who got the blueprints, and in April an article appeared on which claimed that India is about to go public with free energy, and it even stated that India regards the act of declassifying free energy as a matter of national pride. Now, I found no official Indian government documents on this matter, but the specific project this article is talking about, it's an article in the TAP blog, which is I always find very interesting to read. It says that I covered this on the Panwo Voice, by the way, if you want to read it. It is a real project, and it's led by an electrical engineer called Paramahamsa Tawari. Now, he's a former designer of India's nuclear power program. I'm talking about conventional nuclear power, nuclear fission, like you get in any nuclear power station. And he has worked on nuclear power stations right across India and in other countries as well, including Canada. But his work has also taken him down less well-trodden paths, and I think that's got a lot to do with his personality and his interests. he has developed something called the reactionless AC synchronous generator, RLG. And he's not someone you can dismiss easily out of hand. He's had years of experience. He graduated from the Engineering College of Varanasi in 1958, and he has always had an open mind when it comes to over-unity, and he's also confirmed the findings of Bruce De Palma and his N machine. And this, of course, is shortly before De Palma was murdered in 1997 following Dr. Edgar Mitchell's warning for him not to pursue his free energy work. Tawari, he replicated De Palma's discovery and produced his own device, which he claims has an over-unity factor of 250%, which is incredible. It means that the energy input exceeds the energy output exceeds the input by 2.5 times. Now that's, if it was only by 1%, that would be staggering, but this is more than twice as much. And most physicists say that this is impossible because it breaks the fundamental cosmological laws referring to the conservation of energy, thermodynamics, entropy, etc. However, these results are real data, and if they're real data, they can't be ignored simply because they breach previously held beliefs that if evidence is presented, then it's either right or wrong. There's no other choice. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. That's it. That's the only criteria as far as I'm concerned. Now, it's possible that inventions like Tawari's tap into the 0-point field, which is this enormous underlying reservoir of energy built into the very structure of the universe. And conventional physicists deny that the 0-point field can ever be reached by man-made endeavours. But the thing is, these output meters keep rising. So where's the energy coming from if it's not coming from the 0-point field? It's coming from somewhere. And people think of free energy, they think of some busy, heavy industrial device buried in some underground base. No, it's not always. Free energy is not dependent on projects of high budget, complex technology, and heavy industrial methods. No. Over-unity effects have been achieved in very simple systems, such as Victor Schauberger's Trout turbine, which is simply a strangely shaped pipe. I think I talked about this on a previous film. And of course there's cold fusion. You may have seen my videos, nuclear fusion power and Martin Fleischmann dyes. That can be created using a common or garden test tube and 2 electrodes, and a schoolboy in a science class could probably do it with a bit of help. There is a conspiracy to suppress this fact, which I have talked about, and it's a very, very major underlying systemic and functional conspiracy of society. And they have different ways of achieving this. One of them is to have their placemen in the media, like Professor Brian Cox. Oh yes, indeed, Professor Brian Cox. However, for some reason, Cox has been very quiet about free energy lately. But I wouldn't be surprised in the following year, in this 2016 coming up, whether we have disclosure or not, you're going to see Cox become more vocal about free energy. I think he's going to be used to become the. He's going to be the placeman for free energy dismissal and debunking, I think. As you can see here, this reactionless this RLG generator thing, this reactionless synchronous AC synchronous generator, it looks intricate, but it's actually very simple. It's actually adapted from a simple electric motor, and it's not unlike the original invention. And the invention was in 1832 by Michael Faraday. And of course, it's now found in everywhere. It's everywhere. It's nothing revolutionary about this basic function. It's the simplest electrical engine possible, and it's already in use everywhere around you, from sliding doors to railway locomotives. We're talking about a shaft. We have like a metal shaft inside an electric conductor, where there's a set of magnets which causes flux, and that causes the rod to rotate. It's that simple. But now what Tawari has done, he's allegedly modified this and discovered a way of rearranging the magnets to produce an amazing property. Now what happens is, the magnetic field no longer produces torque on the conductor, so the conductor doesn't spin round, and what it does instead is generate an electric current that can exceed the one used to power the magnets. It's very simple to build, You could make one yourself, and it uses the same materials needed to make a conventional electric motor. Now, another engineer called Toby Grotz has visited Dr. Tewari's laboratory, and he says he has independently verified it. Now, the two of them, he was very impressed. They both together took the blueprints of Tewari's machine to an electrical factory, and the chief engineer of the company was so impressed that he immediately bought the rights and ordered a production line open for them. Now, Tewari and the company, they immediately assembled a team of designers to improve on the original model. A utility company in India is apparently interested and has arranged tours for Tewari and his team, although this company has not been named. Now, the first electrical company is called the Karnataka Power Corporation. No, sorry, that's the second power company they approached. It's a third organisation, and it has a contract to build wind farms to power the city of Bangalore. But you go to their website, there's nothing on their house website if you search for Tewari, reactionless, or anything else like that. There's one entry for synchronous, and it refers to a 9 megawatt power station near Malapur. So if the Karnataka Power Corporation are interested in, and they're involved with Tewari's team, they're keeping it quite low at the moment. But the actual original electrical company group has been named. It is the Kirloskar Group. And this serves, again, you go to their website, there's nothing on there about Tewari invention. But Tewari seems to know his business. He seems to be serious. Like Keshi, he's quite impressive. He comes across as impressive. His mentor is Nikola Tesla, very wisely, and he's been greatly inspired by the cultural and spiritual traditions of his own ancient country. And he says this is from Tewari: the universal matter is created out of prana, since prana is akash in motion, and akash is the primordial superfluid, the substratum of the universe. Now that's interesting, because this goes back to prehistoric times. The Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest texts in the world, and is one of the foundational texts of the Hindu mythology. It talks about flying vehicles called vimanas, which exhibit anti-gravity properties. And it's possible that the remains of a working vimana might exist in Trivandrum in Kerala in India. And I've written about this on a Panwo Voice. And Toby Grotz, the man who initially supervised Tewari's work, said this: the second law of thermodynamics must be modified to account for the fact that space is not empty, as has been taught for the last 150 years. The RLG operates on what has been called over-unity. Many experienced electrical engineers engaged in the manufacture of AC generators have independently tested the RLG and confirmed the efficiency factors that I have observed. It's time for physicists to get out of the way and modify their theories while the engineers go about the business of design and production. And it's actually Toby Grotz who's written this audaciously titled article. India won't suppress Tewari free energy generator. But, is he sure about that? Now, he mentions that there has been threats from petrodollar companies, the United States, the United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia. He doesn't go into details of what these threats actually constitute, but perhaps he anticipates these threats on theoretical grounds, and he's correct to. But all the while, Dr. Tewari and his team are working on a project to introduce commercial RLGs. And I find that's, I wish them luck. I really do. I don't know if what's going to happen to this, but I will be watching it, because I've got a feeling this story is not over. And at the same time, what's interesting is there's another chap who is engaged in a very similar project in a very different place. He's somebody who's actually someone I know. He has been a guest on the Panwo show in Programme 98, and his name is Stuart Hill. And he's part of the campaign to assert the independence of Shetland, an archipelago of islands to the north of the British Isles, supposedly the most northerly location in the UK and Scotland, when in fact they're really not part of the UK or Scotland at all. And this is where he's developing his own machine, and he's got a video up which is really quite amazing, I must say. Now all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel Jolly Blacksmith, and you'll come across a video called Stuart's Gravity Generator. Stuart Hill's gravity generator, and you'll immediately get a picture of the actual thing itself. And it's a simple but ingeniously put together device. It's basically a series of wheels. It consists of a set of wooden wheels. So he's built this working prototype, which you can see in operation on this video. It consists of a set of wooden wheels on a drive shaft powered by a 0.12 kilowatt electric motor. Now there are reduction gears between the motor and the wheels, which causes the wheels to spin quite slowly, 14 revolutions per minute. Now there's another wheel attached by chains to four other shafts that run through the edges of the main wheels, as you will see, not the centre of the wheel. Now these shafts have four weights attached, which total 110.2 pounds. And these are rotated by the off-centre shafts at the same time that the main wheels are spinning through the main shaft. And this whole array then drives an electric generator. Now Stuart gauges his machine in a way which is unconventional and not precise, but it's still interesting. What he does is he observes the speed of rotation from the input motor and compares it to the speed of rotation of the generator. That's not a specific measurement of energy, but it's still a significant indicator of a possible over-unity effect. And he can alter the load even by turning the weights into different angles on the perimeter shafts. So I'll be following this, interested in further developments. Whether he can detect over-unity can he detect any over-unity by a more precise method of measurements? That's the question. But what's common about this particular device is something I've seen in other free energy devices, and that is the interference of two axes of rotation. And that reminds me of Eric Lathwaite and his gyroscopes, this guy who believed there was a free energy effect from gyroscopes. He used to have like two gyroscopes spinning round on another axis on another wheel. And Stuart has done all this himself in his garage. He's got what looked like bicycle components to build this machine, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a great tradition in the field for these amateur home inventors, and it's interesting when you combine the radical political situation which he has initiated in Shetland with the interest in free energy, and that again often goes together. Because it's this breakaway society. It's funny when a society breaks away from the mainstream. The issues, things like free energy, the paranormal, UFOs, these often come up. And it's interesting to think about why and how that is. And maybe it's connected to how these issues are suppressed within mainstream societies. So I wish both Dr. Tawari and Stuart Hill a lot of luck with that. And both their projects. Right, now here's a very interesting news story that emerged. It happened on the 15th of December. A Soyuz FG rocket blasted off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, this big space centre in Kazakhstan, and it carried a man called Major Tim Peake, who has been called Britain's first astronaut. Now, that's not literally true in the sense that he's not actually the first British person in space, even though he's been called Britain's first astronaut. The person who holds that honour is Helen Sharman, but she was apparently designated a passenger only on the technicalities of space exploration. That's splitting hairs a bit there. But anyway, apparently unlike his compatriot predecessor, Tim Peake is trained as an active crew member of a spacecraft, and he's the first ever British person to do that. Or I'm sure he's not the first actually. I'm sure there's many British people who've been into space secretly before and since, but that's a story for another time. But he's the first publicly acknowledged British space pilot, basically. He's been training for a long years, Major Tim, as he's been dubbed. Major Tim. Yes, just wait for the inevitable cover versions of David Bowie's Space Odyssey to hit the charts. Anyway, he's now in space. His parents, along with his wife Rebecca, watched him as he launched. His two sons were there too. They watched the rocket fire up on the same launch pad that the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, supposedly, did on April 12, 1961. And a lot of people have been cheering him on. There's a live screening of the launch. at the London Science Museum where kids turned up. Some of them came dressed as astronauts. In Chichester, West Sussex, where Tim comes from, there was a big party. So the Soyuz craft, the TMA orbital stage, it headed up to the International Space Station at 5:30 p.m. that afternoon. It docked with the International Space Station to drop off Tim and his 2 crewmates, and they're going to spend 6 months aboard the International Space Station. Well, good luck to him, I say. Now, when he comes back to Earth, I'm going to have to get in touch with him and ask him a key question. Tim, did you see a UFO while you were up in space? You knew I was going to say that, didn't you? Now this may seem a strange thing to do because astronauts are highly trained, sober and rational professionals, and their mental health is very carefully screened, aren't they? So why on earth would they see a UFO? But it's a hypothetical question which is made moot by a much simpler actual question. Do astronauts see UFOs up in space? And the answer is yes. And some have spoken openly about it, like Buzz Aldrin, Gennady Strikalov, Colonel Gordon Cooper. But all the space agencies, NASA, the ESA, the Roscosmos, all the other government space agencies, their official position on UFOs is that there is no evidence that they exist. But it's a lie. There are other reasons to suspect that the presence of UFOs in space is being deliberately suppressed. Occasionally, strange objects are picked up by approved space footage, and the commentary by the astronauts on the scene and mission control is very curious because they seem to know what's going on, but they avoid mentioning the phenomena. And sometimes you'll hear mission control saying something like, the astronauts saying, please turn your radio to channel whatever, and then they go quiet. So they alter their radio settings and they go quiet. And then suddenly, usually at that point, the live feed will go down due to technical problems. Now this indicates that the astronauts have a separate private communications channel, probably an encrypted one, for discussing classified issues. And UFOs are one of those. This means that those astronauts must be briefed into the subjects of UFOs and how to deal with them when they appear, including keeping them secret from the media and the viewing public. I think you call UFOs an open secret within the spacefaring community. It's one of these sort of things, which is surprising how many people can keep these open secrets. And look at Jimmy Savile. Now, there are a few instances when an astronaut exhibits behaviour that reveals that they have not yet been briefed in. They've not been initiated into this open secret. Now, in November 2014, the Italian astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti was having a spacewalk outside the ISS when she saw something that caused her to gasp. She gasped and she yelled, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God!" And what's even more interesting is there was a man assisting her on the EVA, and his response was very different. He didn't react to the phenomenon at all, and immediately ordered her to be silent, as if he's used to such things, and he's been warned before about UFOs, and they sometimes appear, and he should keep that to himself. And when this incident occurred, Samantha Cristoforetti, I think she was new on the space station, and nobody had yet had the chance to take her to one side and have a quiet word. Samantha, there's a few things you need to know. Now, Tim Peake, he's a sane, expert, professional astronaut. But then so is Samantha Cristoforetti, and she was not included in the circle of those in the know. At least she wasn't at first, obviously she is now. Perhaps Tim Peake knows nothing about the UFO scene either, up there. Yet. So maybe we should watch out for a similar exclamation from Tim as we had from Samantha, albeit perhaps a more masculine British stiff-upper-lipped, "Oh, good heavens above!" I thought that was the end of the story, but then ufologist Melanie Trinder found this article in the Daily Express. Best piece of UFO evidence in years filmed by NASA as Tim Peake docked with the ISS. This footage of the International Space Station, apparently surrounded by unidentified flying objects this week, has been branded the best piece of evidence for years for the existence of aliens. The footage has caused a storm, and it's Mr. Enigma again, his channel. He always does these things. After it was uploaded to Mr. Enigma's channel, UFOs seen everywhere during Soyuz docking. What it does, it shows the Russian Soyuz TMA spacecraft and the ISS. And Tim Peake was on board the spacecraft. And the videos basically shows the spacecraft coming alongside the ISS, and it attaches to it. And eventually Tim Peake and the other crew members are allowed out of the craft into the ISS. But you can see dozens of these UFOs in the background, zipping off into the distance, some of them floating by. There's even like a donut-shaped one that seems to come close. It's really amazing. Obviously this is happening quite a lot now, so it's almost like routine. It's been likened to the tether incident of 1996, that's STS-80, where there was massive numbers of UFOs swarming around this broken tether. It looked really weird, it's like an aquarium. So I'm really keen to know whether this will have any effect. I mean, this is one of those strange things, you know. Footage of the UFO tether incident and footage of this, they might develop a similar status. We don't know, but like I said, I can't wait for Tim to get back to Earth. I'll have to get in touch with him. I'm sure I won't be the only person who wants to contact him, but I will ask him about the UFOs for certain. And Tim, if you're watching this, because I know you can get YouTube up on the ISS, please do get in touch and let me know. Well, Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. And I'm today, or right now, it's night time, and I'm at this. I come to this little field to try and get away from the city lights. So I want to do some sky watching. However, I'm not. For once, I'm not actually doing sky watching for UFOs. I'm actually looking for a star. Although I don't think I'm going to be able to, because there's a few breaks in the clouds. I can see some stars poking through in the general direction of where I want to look, but I'll be lucky to actually see the patch of sky I want to see. But I'll keep trying anyway. Anyway, I'm here. This is me. I'm here. You can see me now. There we are. Hello. Hi. Right. Now I'm actually looking for a star. It's a particular star I'm looking for. It's got a catchy little name, KIC 8462852. So see if I can find that star. I'm not going to repeat it back to you. It's been nicknamed Tabby Star after its discoverer. But what's happened is this is all to do with SETI. Now, as you know, I'm very much into UFOs. And SETI is something different. SETI, S-E-T-I, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. That's not to be confused with CSETI, Dr. Stephen Greer's organisation, the Centre for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It's not the same thing. Far from it, in fact. SETI is actually an umbrella organisation. It's a project of various different projects, past and present, that want to search for aliens out in space, intelligent life in the universe, by monitoring their radio signals. So you get like these, because this is really amazing, because you can actually, something with intelligence might be actually radiating a recognisable intelligent radio transmission which we can pick up with our radio telescopes, and maybe they can pick up ours. And this is something that does interest me. I don't know. The feeling's not is unrequited. The feeling's not mutual, but I am interested in setting. The sky's clearing over there now. I'm looking northwest around about. So there's a lot of. I can't escape light altogether in Oxford, because there's some lights over there. That's the Oxford Science Park over to the right. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some lights coming off that. So it's this dark meadow is actually not completely dark. And there's a car headlight there on Grenoble Road, and it's shining in my eyes. But anyway, I mean, there's been a couple of occasions when there have been mysterious signals received from space. There was one in 1967 when a radio astronomer, I think up near Cambridge somewhere, was monitoring the sky. Her name was Susan Jocelyn Bell, and she came up with a regular pulsing signal from out in the universe, and she called it LGM, which was short for Little Green Men. She actually did take the idea seriously. This might be intelligent life out there communicating with us. It did turn out that this was actually a natural object. It was an unusual kind of star called a pulsar. So they understood that wasn't really aliens. But there was another one in 1977, so go for 10 years. Jerry Eman, another radio astronomer in America, he discovered something which he was so impressed by this signal that came off the data sheet from his radio telescope that he wrote the word wow in the margin as a notation. And it's been called the wow signal. And unlike the LGM, the wow signal has never been solved. So it's quite something, isn't it? There probably are, life out there is likely. Now, as you know, I keep an open mind when it comes to UFOs. I'm not saying they come from other planets. They might be interdimensional. They might be something like that. But if there's life out there, it would be quite something. But I mean, in terms of disclosure, I mean, I don't think the two would go together. But if some kind of life, intelligent signal was discovered out there in the universe, it would reignite the UFO issue. I mean, the odds are in favour because simply there's so much out there. I mean, there is, despite Fermi's paradox and all this, there's the Drake equation, which calculates the likelihood of life out in space, and there's a number of different factors. The number of stars which have planets, the number of planets which are in the right Goldilocks zone, where you have liquid water and stuff for life. There's the likelihood that life emerges, that intelligent life emerges, etc. And he worked out there was a minimum of 80 intelligent civilizations capable of contacting us in the galaxy. This, of course, makes the assumption that they have the kinds of minds which would want to contact others. They, even if they're capable of building radio transmitters, they may not want to. But we're assuming they're like us and they're curious about other stars, and they're also want to find out the same things that we do. One thing you get with SETI is the people who are really enthusiastic about SETI tend to be very much anti-UFOs. And the reasons for that are obvious. It's kind of a bit of a sky clearing over there, hang on. Well, the star I'm looking for is it's between the two bright stars of, it's in Cygnus, on the cusp of Cygnus and Lyra, and it's between the stars of Vega and Deneb. So we've got to look out for that. There's some patches of sky, I can see something that might be Vega poking through. The problem is, these are the wrong tools. I mean, you need a proper telescope. I don't think you're going to see it on this camera. I mean, this star is the star I'm talking about, KIC 846252852 is a long way away. It's 1,400 light years away. As Douglas Adams says, that's more than a long walk to the chemist shop. So you'd need a telescope to see it, I think, and you need completely clear skies without any muck at all in the air. Now, SETI, people who are enthusiastic about SETI tend to get very against UFOs, and it's obvious why. They're out there pointing their telescopes at the sky, looking for life out there. We're saying, well, you're pointing the wrong way, mate, because life's already here down on Earth. With us, it's here with us already, it's reached us. Now, I mean, there was this ridiculous TV programme, the BBC Conspiracy Road Trip UFO edition. I was asked to take part in that myself. Someone from the bloody Renegade Pictures wrote to me and said, they're the people who make it. They said, would you like to be involved in our TV programme, Ben Emlyn Jones? I wrote back saying, no, all words to that effect. Anyway, they had Dr. Seth Shostak, who is, and PZ Myers. These are two guys who are very keen on PZ Myers is an evolutionary biologist, and Seth Shostak is head of SETI. They're both very anti-UFOs. And famously, Carl Sagan was very opposed to UFOs. Now, he was like he was kind of like a nice guy skeptic, I suppose you could say. He was likeable, he was fun, he was articulate, he was intelligent, he was pleasant. All those things. But he was a skeptic. But he was quite nice skeptic. He, the sort of skeptic I could sort of sit down and have a drink with without punching him in the face. Now, not many of those. But he was very anti-UFO. I mean, I did enjoy his series Cosmos. I thought that was very good. But there's a section in there on UFOs trying to debunk Betty and Barney Hill, saying, oh, it's all in their heads, it's all sleep paralysis in their heads, delusion, embellishment, etc. Which of course is false. But Sagan's very keen on SETI, and there's this entire segment in Cosmos. It's like an 8-part mini-series, documentary. There's an entire episode on SETI and the search for life out in the universe. And when I was a kid, I saw it when I was a little kid, it enthralled me. Absolutely enthralled me. It got me into science fiction and things like that. I started reading Arthur C. Clarke and things like that. But, is that... I'm still pointing my I'm pointing my camera in the place where this KIC, whatever its star is. But the SETI people don't like UFOs. Now, someone actually wrote to me and they said, Ben, do you think SETI are COINTELPRO? Do you... What's that noise? Some guy with a... I thought it was a weird noise. Do you think SETI are COINTELPRO? Do you think they're designed to are they part of the UFO cover-up? I think not. I think they're an innocent they're an innocent kind of group of people. Like I say, it's not an organisation as such. It's a series of organisations. I think they're an innocent group of people who believe in what they're doing. However, if the breakaway civilization, who is trying to keep the secret UFOs actively, thinks they might be useful, in their all innocence, to their own part, then they wouldn't hesitate to use them. Maybe even give them some funding and things like that. Keep people looking in the wrong direction. Keep people looking up there when they should be looking down here. Right. Yeah. Now, yeah, it's a long way off, 1,400 light years. Now, what's so special about this star? Well, I'll explain that. There is a space telescope called Kepler, the Kepler Space Telescope, that was sent up a while ago to search for planets, exoplanets. Now, exoplanets they're not like Mars, Jupiter, Venus, because all those planets orbit the Sun. They're quite close relatively, even though they may be far away by our standards. Then exoplanets orbit other stars. And Kepler's already discovered quite a few. Kepler's been scanning the sky now since 2009, and it's studied 1,500 different stars for searching for planets. It's at least a long, long way away. We're talking hundreds, thousands of light years. It's very difficult to see something through a telescope. It's got at that distance. You can't do it from Earth because of the atmosphere, the atmospheric distortion. But what Kepler does is it looks for occultations of the star. For instance, the star sort of blinks every so often, it gets dimmer every so often, or it wobbles a little bit. It means there's something orbiting it which is affecting the star's own rotation or orbit, and also maybe occasionally it's eclipsing the star. So you get this kind of this occultation or eclipse which dims the star, and it's detectable. The star might darken by 1% every 3 years or something, which means it's got some object orbiting it every 3 years. Now, the thing about KIC 8462852 is that it's got something orbiting. It's not got one object orbiting it, it's got multiple objects orbiting it, as if it's surrounded by a cloud of something. And the astronomer who made this discovery, her name is Tabitha Boyajian, Dr. Tabitha Boyajian, great name that, which is why it's been nicknamed Tabby Star. Tabitha Boyajian has said she's never seen anything like it, and she's baffled by it. And she wrote up a paper all about this, which I read. I mean, it's hard to understand because it's written in scientific language, but it's worth having a look through. You can pick up the basics of it. But there's some documents as well, there's some articles from journalists and things like that. And I've just seen a shooting star. Oh, make a wish. I want there to be aliens out there and I want to find them. Alright, she says, "Oh, I've never seen anything like this. None of us have ever seen anything like this before. It's like a cloud of material," and she's baffled as to what it is. What she suspects it might be. Well, the only explanation she ruled out instrument error and things like that, but she suspected that it might be like fragments. Now, this is common among young stars which have just been created in nebulae, because they're surrounded by an accretion disk, this disk of material which eventually condenses into planets. Our own sun used to have one of these disks around it before it became a proper solar system. But this star, KIC whatever blah 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 8125446444 whatever it's called, it's a mature star. It's from the F category, which means it's almost as old as our sun. It's slightly bigger than our sun. Despite its size, it must be slightly brighter than our sun too. You can't see it because it's so far away. If you could get 1400 light years away from our sun, you wouldn't be able to see it either, except through a telescope. But she says it could be that some kind of object, another star, passed through in its vicinity, dragging behind a cloud of comets, and that this cloud are these comets. I mean, this is the thing. She's like many skeptics. She's desperate to find a rational explanation. And whenever you hear that term, rational explanation, I mean, don't get me started on that. It's a bad sign, because rationality can be decided by method, not conclusion. You know, I could work out scientifically that there are little green men on the moon, and that would be a rational explanation. And conversely, you know, I could say, I don't believe in no aliens or ghosts. It ain't real. I'm a skeptic, see, right, mate? I'm a skeptic, and I don't believe in these things, right? There ain't no such things as ghosts or UFOs, mate. Innit? It's all in your head, innit? And I don't know nothing about science, right, mate? But I just decided there ain't no such things as UFOs, like, you know. So I just worked it out, man, intuitively, you know. I just know these things. I didn't see the aliens on Jeremy Kyle, man. All right, you say that's a rational explanation. You see why it's wrong. But basically, she didn't want to say this herself. There was this other guy, one of her colleagues, Dr. Jason Greaves or something. He came up with Jason Wilson or something like that. I can't remember his name, but he's got a much more ordinary name than she has. But he's the one who said what it could be is a Dyson sphere. Now, a Dyson sphere is something very interesting, because in the early days of SETI, when SETI was first started and Carl Sagan and that were involved. Carl Sagan died in 1997. But they were talking about how what would an alien civilization look like if you're out there, if you're looking for something from another planet, if you're looking at another star to try and see if it's got any intelligent life on there, from a distance we're talking about now, without directly observing it. What would you look for? And one of those things would be radio signals which resembled our own in terms of being intelligently created. Not the random noise of the background of space. Another would be possibly artificial structures out there. Now, if a civilization, if an alien technology, an alien intelligent species has reached a level of technology and civilization far higher than our own, they may have the technology to build structures in space that are so large they could be seen from beyond it. They could even build something that completely surrounds their star with various structures, and that's called a Dyson sphere. And these could be like giant solar panels which would suck energy out of the star, things like that. These would be structures bigger than planets, so this would be a very, very advanced civilization, way ahead of our own. But what if this is it? We could be looking at a Dyson sphere around this star, KIC 8462852. That'd be quite something, wouldn't it? Now, Dr. Boyajian doesn't mention this in her paper. It's like I mean, she spoke to a journalist and said you've got to take the idea seriously, but she said things like, aliens are the absolutely last hypothesis you must consider. I mean, why? I mean, according to whose principles? Again, you know, it's like well, you have to consider all the non-alien explanations before you consider the aliens. Why? I mean, because it's more likely it's not aliens. How do you know it's more likely it's not aliens? Gets into the Occam's razor fallacy again, doesn't it? But oh, it's pathetic. It really is. I'm going to move my little Jodrell Bank telescope slightly because I think the stars are moving. The stars are sort of rotating because obviously time they do over the course of the evening. Anyway, so this was not in Dr. Boyajian's paper, but it could. What if it is? What if it is? I mean, it could be. We're out there, 1,400 light years away. There is some creatures that are building these things. But how could we ever contact them? The thing about it is, I mean, because they're so far away, and light years, and literally is light years, the light we're seeing now from that star was actually radiated from the star in the fifth century. In the 5th century, and we were all going around with handcarts and tilling the fields and dodging wild boars and things like that, and whacking each other over the heads with swords. It was the Middle Ages when the light left this star. We're not seeing that star as it is now. We're seeing it as it was all those years ago, all those centuries ago. That's what Richard Dawkins I don't agree with, but one thing he's right about. It's amazing when you look up into the sky. It's like a time machine. You're looking back in time. That's true. Because light travels at a finite speed. Well, well, it could be different because some people say the speed of light varies, which means if light travels faster when you get away from the solar system, then we could be looking at it as it was much sooner. So I'll keep an open mind to that. But the Voyager probes and things like that are now outside the solar system. They're sending back weird data, like they're changing speed or something like that, because of the interstellar medium might be different. And I've heard about the variable speed of light before, so I'll just assume that the speed of light is as Einstein said it was and it's fixed. We're looking at the stars it was so long ago. Now, what could we do? I mean, we could send them a message saying, hello, we're here. We'd have to wait almost 3,000 years for them to say, yes, hello, yes, yeah, we hear you. Who are you? Is this a sales call? You know, it would take millennia to have a short conversation. I just saw another shooting star. It's amazing how many of them there are if you're just out looking at the sky. Make another wish. Well, I'm not going to tell you what that one is. Anyway, so the scientists, the actual astronomers involved with the Kepler mission are embarrassed about even mentioning the possibility that it might be aliens. But it might be aliens! And Dr. Boyajian doesn't mention aliens in her paper, but of course the media are onto it. And, you know, I bet she got a bloody bollocking off her boss. Dr. Boyajian, what's going on here? I've had the bloody Daily Express on the phone to me, asking why one of my staff members is talking about bug-eyed monsters that have been discovered by that Kepler space mission. No, that's what they're like. See, this is how secrets are kept. This is how conspiracies happen. Because there is this groupthink, there's this obedience mentality, there's this herding instinct we all have, which is good in a way. I mean, it's good that we have this because it allows us to function as a team. It's this herding instinct. It means that we can walk around in groups, we can hunt, we can survive by having a leader, and we follow the leader. And if we don't like the leader, we elect another one. But it's useful from an evolutionary point of view in some ways, but it allows us also to be sucked into a mentality where we become malleable by malicious individuals unless we recognise the authorities for what they are and refuse to obey them. But this is how conspiracies are kept. I mean, scientists have rent to pay too, you know. Dr. Boyajian, she doesn't want to be out on a job. She doesn't want to be out on a job. She doesn't want to be out on her ass. She studied all these years to become an astronomer, and she's sorry, get down the job centre. You know, sorry, you're going to be kicked out of your home. No. See, this is how normality and paradigms don't. This is why paradigms are so difficult to change, because They don't. They're so entrenched. Ideas become so entrenched. They don't change. Now the good news is, though, they are going to look. There's going to be further study done on this star, the Very Large Array Telescope, which featured in the film Contact. Now the movie Contact is well worth seeing. It stars Jodie Foster. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, and it's based on the novel by Carl Sagan about SETI. It's all about a situation in which they find something. They find an intelligent signal out in space. It's all about that. And it's ironic, isn't it? It's worth watching that film, because in the movie Contact, it's like, what if they did find something? It would be quite revolutionary. It would change the world in many ways. The question is, you have to ask the question if you see, this is the good news is they're going to do a radio telescopic survey of that star, KCI, KIC, whatever it's called, next year. It's going to start in the new year probably, and hopefully by October they will have results. And if they find something hopeful, they'll carry on studying it, try and get more and more radio signals out of it, because it's a long way off and it's very difficult to gather all the radiated information from it. So it could be, but next year we will have confirmation that we are dealing with an extraterrestrial civilization, or at least one which radiates radio waves, which they might not necessarily do, but they may have come up with something more sophisticated by now. Of course, from their standards, they won't have picked up anything from us, because we only started radiating things barely over a century ago out into space. So it's possible they haven't actually. But unless, of course, like they've been sending their ships down here, and that's what we're seeing in the skies, extraterrestrials. I can see loads of stars now. The cloud's thin, but I can't see the stars I'm looking for. There's still a lot of cloud in that area. I saw it a minute ago. I saw either Vega or Deneb, I think, but I know I'm pointing the camera in the right direction. So, hello there, any of you guys out there who are watching on the star KIC, or planet, all that Dyson sphere, or the planets orbiting KIC 285, whatever. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you enjoy Panwo TV. Tune in. We'll soon find out anyway. But is this related to disclosure? That's the question. I mean, I'll come down and talk to you directly. It's just one moment. Oh. How does this relate to the disclosure issue? So, does this mean that we're going to get more? That we're going to have ET disclosure, the type that Steve Bassett talks about, and Dr. Stephen Greer and all those people? Quite possibly it could be a trigger. This could be a trigger event for actual disclosure, because it's possible that if we discover there's a signal on another planet, that it may turn attention away from the UFO phenomenon, and the government will like that. On the other hand, it may have the opposite effect. It might backfire, and it might actually do the opposite. It might actually make people more aware of things like this, and then the government will have to start discussing UFOs. It could go either way. I can see both scenarios coming out. Tricky one to call. Very tricky one to call. So I've got some notes here. So I don't need that anymore. Don't need my notes anymore. So this is the thing. I mean, a little while ago, someone had published I saw something written where they were saying that because we may not have to go as far as KIC 285 486 449 or whatever it's called, we may find an announcement much closer to home. Someone said that sometime this year NASA is going to announce that they found life on Mars. Now, we've heard this before, right? We've heard this before many times, and there's also distinct evidence of a cover-up of possible life on Mars. You've got to realise, I mean, at the very dawn of the space program in 1959, the Brookings Institute issued a report actually saying to NASA, if you find evidence of life, for God's sake, just don't shout it from the rooftops, because it'll have terrible effects on the church, on the economy, on the government. People will become ungovernable, basically. And every single discovery and every single invention that comes out of science is vetted by these psychological think tanks before it's released to the public. That's another thing that skeptics need to realise. If what the skeptics say is true and the worldview of the skeptic was correct, then that wouldn't happen. Whether anything's true or false is all that mattered. So I think this is a disclosure issue, but maybe not in the way people think. Someone's shone a torch at me. No, it's not that. Anyway, it's getting a bit chilly now, believe it. Winter may finally arrive at last. It's getting cold, and I still see a few stars up there, but I'm not going to find the star I wanted to see. I just wanted to show you where it was, basically, so that you could actually see the patch of sky to look where it actually is. So we were at least looking at the star under discussion, even though we can't actually see it. So let's continue. There's a lot more to discuss, disclosure-wise, before the end of this year, which is only a short time away now. Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. And just a little note to let you know that if you happen to be in the South Wales area later in January, you might consider coming along to a live event where I'm going to be speaking. I'm going to be addressing the Swansea UFO Network on Tuesday, the 26th of January, 2016, and the event starts at 8 p.m. and the venue is the Welcome Inn with two N's, Llangefellach Road, which is in Llangefellach, Swansea, which of course is in Wales, and Llangefellach is spelled Llangefellachs for you English one people out there. There's a Facebook group, the Swansea UFO Network, which you might need a Facebook account to view, but the details are also on the Hapanwo Voice blog. And my lecture is going to be entitled Energy Politics and UFOs, and it will include updates from the last time I did this in January. Well, I did a studio version in January. Energy is everything. It is the foundation and structure of civilization. What are the politics of energy? Something far deeper and more complicated than you might think, and believe it or not, it connects to UFOs. Why? Well, the answers and more questions will be revealed. So please do get to that if you can. It'd be lovely to meet you. Come along and say hello if you do. Please also do remember that the first chapter, a sample chapter of my new novel, Aurora, a novel of disclosure, is available on Ben's bookcase. And you go to hpanwl-bb.blogspot.com and you'll find it at the top of the page. And this is the first chapter of a novel all about what would have happened in July of 1947 if the truth embargo to cover up the Roswell incident never happened. So it's a kind of alternative history story. 2016 is the year I'm going to write Rockwell. I'm already made a lot of progress with chapter 2. I'm going to go on to the next few chapters, and it's a book I think it's not going to be as long as my previous novels, so I think I'll be finishing it within the next few months. Then of course I've got to revise it and everything else. Hopefully it will be published in 2016. But until then, please do enjoy the sample chapter. Okay, it's that time of the film when I go through all your comments from the previous film in the series. This of course will be the last time I do this, although actually I think if I do a UFO, I will reply verbally, okay? And I will reply the video. I will reply verbally to you, and if it's a long time before I make another film on UFOs disclosure, I will also write just comments. I will write replies to you, okay? But I've had 91 comments on UFO Disclosure 2015, Truth or Greer. That's an awful lot. I'll get through these. I might have to go through them more. I might have to take a break. I may not be able to get through them all in one go, so please do bear with me. I ask for your patience. I also want to apologise for anyone whose comments ended up in the spam box. For some reason, the spam filter sent some perfectly decent and ordinary and honest comments to the spam box, and I didn't notice they were there in some cases for over 2 months. I have published all the comments now that are in there, which are genuine, and I'm sorry for the authors of those comments. So we begin with Anthony Hodges. This guy is full of it. Lose some weight, for fuck's sake. All I heard was puff, puff, puff. Do you think you're being original, Anthony Hodges? Do you really think I haven't heard that before? Stupid twat. Go and have a decent meal, you skinny bastard. Honestly, you're turning anorexic. You know, when you bend over, your bottom looks like 2 razor blades beside a polar with a polar mid between them. Adam Cox. Why does Stephen always wear shirts way too small? You're talking about Greer, I imagine. Adam, it's obviously, I think, because he wants to show off his big muscle. Isn't it obvious? Adam also says, stop rambling on and just play the video shit. I have, haven't I? Don't know what you mean there. Right. Oh, blimey, here we go. Right. Someone called David Monday said, I viewed a few hours of Richard Greer, I think he means Stephen Greer. Interesting, he said during a major sighting, open your heart chakra, a Hinduism term. The word chakra derives from the Sanskrit word meaning wheel. It's where you get the word circle and cycle. It's described as a spinning wheel of light. Any Hindus out there on YouTube knows what's going on. During the sighting, I invited one gold light and a bright light appeared alongside, and he invited the aliens, or could it be something Hinduism was meddling? David, I think you actually went on one of Greer's outings. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to have to see some of your comments here, because some of them are very long, and like I said, I've got an awful lot of them. But I will try to get through as many. I will try to capture the essence of them. This is from Laurel Canyon. I asked myself, bloody, is this an anti-production or to laugh about the whole Brit UFO community, all one word? Media gang stalk for bring fear to the targets. They bring up new kids and they think the farmers' chickens are PGLF, embryos, small greys. Oh man, this tastes like fucking chicken. Ha. DP/30 Tamara Drew actor interview. Oh, what? What are you talking about? This is incoherent. Oh man, I saw this hang up by friends in the fucking German TV because watched your Peasmore tours. You walked around there, found nothing. Blah blah. You crazy. Only this shitty innocent less. Maybe you remember D. After first 5 minutes, I recognised really fast the same dumb fakey houses with the same fucking roofs. Look, yeah, I'm sorry, Laurel Canyon, I can't read this. I can't reply to this. You need to learn to write properly. I mean, maybe it's the education system. I don't know what it is, but it's like people. I think the younger people are. I mean, I imagine you're pretty young. I imagine you're a teenager or a kid or something. It's just that younger people are, the worse their spelling and grammar is. And maybe that's to do with the education, the dumbing down, the stuff like that. But you need to do a course, man. You really do. I'm sorry if you've got some dyslexia or some problem like that. I don't want to be nasty to you, alright? But this is incoherent, it's illegible. And I can't reply to you because I don't know what you're talking about. Project's Black. Hey, Project's Black. Hello. I'm back, Ben. I never left. I'm not a skeptic. I've seen them myself. I only use science and logic. UFOs should be seen in more of a scientific way rather than groups of people with wild stories, claiming all sorts of crazy things who create cults and the like. More those cashing in on it. The governments aren't hiding the fact there are aliens out there. On the contrary, they're funding science while actively looking for them. There's estimated to be 10,000 communicative Earth-like planets. Well, you're right, Project Black, and I've discussed the SETI issue on this film, as you'll have seen if you watch the rest of it. I did address why I think there may be more to it than that, and the SETI and the UFO thing are connected in that way. As for groups of people with wild stories, there are people who tell wild stories within the UFO community, but they're not all wild. Many people have good reasons for what they say. And cults and the like, well, I don't know of any cults. I'm not a member of any cult. There are UFO cults.
which I would not be involved with. But I think maybe you see cultic activity, judging on your own uploads actually. I'd say you see cultic activity in things like the Basis Project and Amash, which I think is not fair. I don't think they are cultic at all. So thanks for the comment. David Mundy has written a few more things actually, and then, okay, this is right. Somebody called. This is important. I want you all to pay attention. Somebody called Don't Eat Me has commented on this video, and he's commented on, or he or she, I think it's a he, has commented on some of the other videos I've made too, including he must have spent about 2 or 3 hours putting loads of comments on my Rendlesham Forest videos. I've blocked Don't Eat Me because of his behaviour. It's not because I can't answer his questions or I don't want to face the truth or any of the other things these skeptics accuse you of when you block them. It's because of his conduct. Because he has been rude, he's been aggressive, and he's been abusive and belligerent, and you don't do that in my comments box. So he's a time-wasting troll, and I've blocked him. So David Mundy's replied to many comments to Don't Eat Me. David, don't waste your time replying to any more. He's gone. He deserved it. Jack Reaper. If you have an implant in your arm, have it taken out, you wally. You have the proof for all this claptrap you preach in your own body. Why not take it out and show us all the truth about aliens and people implanted? Also, if you believe all this, then I'm surprised it's taken you 2 years and you've done nothing about removing the implant in your body when you have no idea to its purpose. Well, Jack, if you watch the video more carefully, you'll see that I actually didn't realise there was... I only found out there was probably an implant in my arm a few months ago when I got it scanned during the summer when I was at the Bases at Woodborough, event. The mark on my arm I found 2 years ago. The location of the implant is where that mark is. I didn't know that mark was related to any implant. I just found out. Now, to have it taken out, I'd have to have its presence would need to be confirmed by medical imaging, and that means MRI. Now, if you have £3,000 spare, could you please send it to me, and I'll have an MRI scan on my arm. Okay. Only then would I have to spend even more money having operations taken out. I'm willing to do that but I can't afford it. If you can, please give me the money. If you study the work of Roger Lear and Daryl Sims and people like that, you should know that. I did actually bring this up during the film, and you obviously didn't watch it properly. Now, of course, I would have it taken out if that was the case. I would have it taken out and have it with surgery. Unless do you really think I can get this done on the NHS? What do you think my GP is going to say if I go to him and I say, Doctor, could you please? I need a scan because I think there's something in my arm. It's an implant put there by space aliens. Could you refer me to X-ray, please? Really? He'd refer me, all right. He'd refer me to the psychiatric clinic. Rebel Rhymes. I believe full disclosure is a myth. I always have. And what kind of evidence would it take? Whose word would we be taking? NASA's? US military? UK secret services? What will convince you these kind of organisations were telling the truth when they lied to us for centuries? Just a few thoughts. Well, Rebel Rhymes, you brought up the concept of fake disclosure, and that is very important. And I do cover that in my novel Aurora. Just a little sneak preview of what's to come if you do get hold of the book. But yeah, I mean, it's possible they'll lie to us, and I've covered that in this film series as well. It's possible they'll say something, when disclosure comes out, it'll be accompanied by maybe a false flag alien attack, and them saying, well, we kept it secret from you because they're hostile, they're evil aliens out there, and they're out to get us, and we need you to forgive us and unite behind us to fight this threat to our planet. That is a possibility. Gary B, sorry. It's good that you don't trust a guy like Greer. He's a name dropper and has done very little actual research. He adores himself and thinks he's a quasi-secret agent with all these I know this person or that person. Very cultish. It's too bad, though, you lost me with the fact you don't believe the moon landings happened. Alright, well, Gary, we'll have to differ on that, okay? And Sean Ebenezer says, you're a joke. Clearly you've not watched all Greer's videos and your reason for not liking him are pathetic. I personally have made CE5 contact and I have video evidence I know he speaks the truth. Alright, well, Sean, I'm not doubting that that CE5 contact is real. I never said that. I was a bit concerned that it costs so much to be involved with CE5 contact. That was my concern. I have watched a lot of Greer's videos. I mean, I went through a phase in maybe the 2007, 2008, when I was absolutely fixated on him, and I listened to everything he said. He got me into the exopolitics movement. Ludicrous. What are Steve Bassett's thoughts on 9/11? And Jack Reaper says Bassett thinks it was perpetrated by the Nation of Islam. I don't know. He's not. He thinks it was done on September the 10th. It was pre-filmed, and well, actually, I haven't heard Bassett say that, Jack. I mean, if you think he has, well, let me know. And Bassett, I think he accepts he won't go into the details of it being a false flag. He tends to avoid the subject altogether. But he is. Richard Dolan is now more open to this idea, although he won't go all the way. He won't discuss the Dr. Judy Wood stuff, which is a mistake for Richard Dolan. I don't think he should be doing that. But Bassett, I think, accepts the possibility of false flag, not to the extent that I am, which is certainty. And I do talk about it, and I believe it's connected to the UFO issue. Edmund Matthews, hi Ed, nice to see you again. I have seen all Richard D. Hall's work. He provides no evidence for the mutilations humans or animals have, and do anything with the aliens. Most probably it's humans. They say it's impossible. People say that about giant stone spheres of Costa Rica. Blah, blah, blah. It's easy to say something is impossible and blame aliens. Steve Bassett doesn't care about Boston bombings or Sandy Hook. He doesn't care about the truth. He wants confirmation narrative. UFOs are real, but like big. It's So this is a long comment. I'm going to have to just skim some of it. Sorry, I do have to skim some of your longer comments simply because otherwise I'll be here all day. I've read some of these in advance, so I know what you're saying. And Greer kicked Cassidy's ass in that debate. She made a fool of herself. Oh, I really enjoyed Ed, I don't agree with what you said about Richard D. Hall. I think he has found evidence for what he talks about. As for Greer versus Cassidy, that was a debate between Project Camelot and Stephen Greer. Mostly Kerry Cassidy did most of the talking. That was quite something. I mean, it's I don't want to be nasty, but the two biggest egos in ufology. It was like the ultimate prize fight. It's like having a ringside seat at the super heavyweight. No, I've got a lot of respect for both. Greer. I think I've got a lot of respect for Kerry Cassidy, and I've actually been on her show and everything, and I talked to her. I think she's not egotistical in the same way that Greer is, but she needs to work on that maybe. Jack Reaper, get a Patreon account, you scrounger. No, I don't want a Patreon account. I have a voluntary donation, but if you want to make a donation to me, Jack, like you can give me the £3,000 for my surgery to get the implant out, if you like. I have a PayPal button on the Hapanwo TV blog. Go to hapanwo-tv.blogspot.com. You can put some money in there if you want. It's completely voluntary. Gives a few pence or a few quid. It's always helpful. I don't want Patreon and stuff like that, and I'm not gonna monetize my videos, all right? Because there's nothing more annoying than you put on a video and it's really an advert for some stupid product, and skip buttons are becoming less and less common. And some adverts are more than 3 minutes long, and I just I'm not watching this. No, I'm not monetizing. Some of my videos have been monetized by because of third-party copyright. But I have not monetized any myself actively. Conan Armstrong Ingram says, "Hi Ben, another great video. An interesting fact, Greer has government-granted clearance to own the highest tech infrared night vision scope available to civilians. He has stated this himself in several videos. Also, in trying to imply the government has acted against him. Sounds like another Mirage man to me. See Richard Doty. In fact, I think it can be said with some confidence that Greer is simply an improved distraction and is clearly part of the cover-up. Further research into actions, efforts of his group strongly supports this. He is the literal circus." Conan, I think you've got a point. It's Greer's attitude to 9/11, and it is a problem. Andrew Johnson's pointed this out. It's the fact that he won't address certain areas such as false flag terrorism. He won't address the climate change issue. He won't address his own free energy projects. Don't seem to get anywhere. They drag along. He's very, very close to Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who I don't particularly trust. There's the Mitchell he warned Bruce De Palma not to get involved in free energy research just before De Palma was killed. A Mirage Men is a reference to the book and the film by Mark Pilkington, Mirage Men. Richard Doty that goes back to the Benowitz affair. Richard Doty was a government agent. He was a known government agent, and openly a government agent, who basically operated within ufology. He went along to UFO conferences, and he was open about who he was, and he managed to recruit certain people, specifically William Moore, the author who wrote the first Roswell book, and Paul Benowitz, a poor guy and he fed this information to them. And it's a very, very sordid, very upsetting and very tragic episode of ufology history, and I've discussed it in detail in other videos. Insert Pie Now says, thanks for posting. Greer was the man up to disclosure interviews. But from Sirius in the desert, oh dear. He took it down the toilet, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I thought Sirius wasn't as good as his previous stuff, I must say. Yeah, I'll go into that. I mean, he does this thing in the desert thing. Again, it's all money. There's a lot of money involved in what he does. And it costs money to go along to his things. And he keeps, as I said, he separates himself from the rest of disclosure and ufology. And the people who go and see him, and they don't attend the conferences or anything. They are focused purely on Greer. That is cultic. Mr. Potato Leg says, love your energy and your chutzpah. Good luck with the whip round for the Brazil trip. Oh yeah, it's all right. I didn't get to Brazil in the end, but not to worry, But Mr. Potato Legs, thanks very much. Do you think I have chutzpah? I don't know. Chutzpah is it's a Yiddish word. It means kind of arrogance and overconfidence. Ludacris, hi Ludacris again. I agree with you on Greer. Remind me of the video you did about him. Did I do another video on Greer? I don't know. Well, I've got some Greer videos coming up that are quite funny. Colin, hello Colin. Related to human mutilations, maybe a logical next question will be regarding the reptilian agenda, and claims that members of this race are said to ritually sacrifice humans, if not eat them. Maybe we should ask Greer and Bassett what their views on this less friendly species or aspects of them have been doing to humanity from time immemorial. Maybe that's the real disclosure. Well, yeah, if you go into David Icke and read what he says, he talks about the reptilians. I don't know if this is connected to the aliens as such, but he says that these reptilians are disguised as humans. He says the Queen is a reptile, which is something I take seriously. It's a big subject, but I think that having read David Icke's books and listened to him, I think there's a case to answer. I think that would actually, if anything, would be harder to disclose than the extraterrestrial question, quite frankly. But thanks for your comment, Colin. It's great. It's great that you're in the comments box, mate. Colin, my good friend there, who features in some of these videos. The 3 Cosmos 3 says, thanks, and don't miss the forthcoming Secret Space Conference. Details on the website and YouTube channel with the same name. Secret Space Conference, yeah. I know Miles went to that. I'd love to get to one of those. If you could do one in Britain, that'd be great, because I can't. Travelling is a problem for me. Travelling abroad is a problem for me. But if you can do one in this country, that'd be fantastic. Maybe I should organise one myself if I had the time and abilities. But yeah, the Secret Space Conference is fantastic. John Smith, hello. With a name like that, you're probably an agent, aren't you? John Smith says, Stephen Greer is CIA and there are no aliens. Talk about propaganda. I don't know if he's CIA specifically. Also, there are aliens. There's no other answer, because all you say is there are no aliens. I say there are. I mean, if you want to put together an actual rational argument why you think there are no aliens, let me know and I'll give you a rational, detailed reply. William Prentice says, fuck this video, too much bullshit talk. Well, go and watch something else then. If you don't like it, no one's forcing you to watch it. There's 2,000 hours of YouTube, 2,000 hours of videos are updated every hour to YouTube. Go and watch one of the others. What B. Wong says, fuck off. Oh, I'm going to delete that. That's rude. That's rude. That is actually racist. Now, yeah, that's rude. Don't be racist to people. I mean, William Prentice is like a black guy, but
if you're going to be, don't be nasty to people, all right? Especially in that way, because it's really unpleasant. I'm not one for political correctness, okay? I told you I'm opposed to cultural Marxism, stuff like that. But if you're going to use abusive language like that, not in my comments box. Snarnock, another fantastic upload, Ben. Did Stephen Greer take his top off during the performance? One can really feel the ego coming off him. If you had the money to go to Brazil, how could you travel there with no passport? Yeah, good. I know, Snarnock. I've gone into that. Is Stephen Bassett aware of the mega wealthy power elites and the corporations who control US politics? Also, you need to persuade Stephen Bassett to read Dr. Judy Wood's book or watch one of her interviews. Look forward to your next video. Thanks, Snarnock. Oh, he didn't take his top off during the performance because if he had, it might have excited me. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I'm straight as a poker, but you know, Stephen Greer could turn a chap's head. He really can. You know, he's one of these guys that I'm not gay in any way, but if I was gay, who would I fancy? It would be Greer, definitely. Yeah, I do have no passport. This is what I say about travelling abroad is a problem for me. It's not impossible to travel abroad without a passport, but it's very difficult. I'd have to go to the bloody Home Office and write lots of letters and things like that. It's a bit of a pain in the backside, or the Foreign Office or something. And Bassett he says he is aware of the mega wealthy power elite. He calls them the money whores and the whatever else. And persuade him to read Dr. Judy Wood's book. Well, I had my hand up during the Q&A when he was there. He never came to me. But I was actually going to suggest that to him. And I know that Andrew Johnson has suggested it to him, and so far he hasn't done it. Rob Sonard. It's all a Hollywood hoax lie festival. I wouldn't trust Greer. Holograms and real technological advances obviously being used to fake an event to shock the world into cinema audience, trance-like attention, and then the wizards can do their thing. Yeah, I mean that's true actually. You're referring to the possibility of the fake alien invasion, Project Bluebeam, and things like that, and that is a concern of mine. And this could be tied into the possibility of the upcoming the fake disclosure, saying well they're all bad. I do cover this in my novel Aurora. I'm going to go into this in fictional form, but I do think, in a sense, I'm writing my book Aurora as a warning to people. Adam, fantastical book reader, hello. Finally a new upload. I do as many as I can, Adam. I'm glad you like them, thank you. City Movie Store says, that's spam. That wasn't filtered out, strangely enough. Darren Kay says, what's car crash victim statistics got to do with human mutilation? Come on, Ben, I've watched some of your vids and you get a thumbs up for us, and I agree with you. I hold Bassett much higher than Greer, who seems to be in it for himself rather than informing the public the real truth. The man is annoying with all his aliens are great and fuzzy warm spirituality higher than us mere humans. Ben, can you do some info on why the aliens themselves are so reluctant to disclose their presence? Well, you're going to have to ask them, basically. To speculate on why they won't disclose their presence is very, very difficult without anthropomorphizing. They don't think like we do because they're not human. I mean, we have the same problem with animals. I mean, your dog or cat might do something really strange one day, and you think, why is the cat or the dog doing that? What the hell's... Why are you doing that? And you don't know. I mean, he knows because he's a dog. You don't because you're human. We do. I mean, we do an awful lot of things that, when we think and say and do, a lot of things that your dog couldn't possibly comprehend. And so it's a bit difficult to actually answer that question. Well, thanks for the comment, Darren. Rip Torn. I love these. Thinks me it's doze. Right. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Ed Matthews says, but a nice video anyway, Ben. You bet you'll never spend 3 hours watching my nonsense. Well, Ed, I have watched a couple of your uploads. I did enjoy them. I haven't watched any for a while, I must admit. But there's just so much out there, you know what I mean? The Bill 9999. This was a long one, Ben, but when I got watching, I couldn't stop. Please keep it up. Thanks, Bill. I will do. Glad you liked them, mate. DR says, I'm glad you liked Holmfirth. It is a special place and worth a longer visit just for its own sake. I live there. and I agree with you on Greer. Oh, thanks, Dr. Did you go to the conference? Did I see you there? Please go to the next one. It's in September. It's in I think the second weekend of September. Check with UFOTruthMagazine.com. And please do get along to that, because you don't have to travel, you're right there. Right, we've got a conversation now, started by Snatched It. Kepler telescope has already found on Earth. 200 others are bigger and smaller among the thousands of planets it's found. Now that's because Kepler comes up in this video, of course, the Kepler Space Telescope. They have found a lot of planets out there, and Kepler, I was talking about that particular one star with its possible Dyson sphere, but what Kepler and other projects have found is that the planets, our solar system, the planets, this collection of planets that goes around the sun, orbits the sun, is just one of many. And it seems that most stars appear to have some planetary systems orbiting them. So that really helps. It gives you one of the factors of the Drake equation I talked about earlier. Because one of the factors is how many planets are actually out there, how many stars have planets. Beetlejuice says, what do you think about the star that could be surrounded with a Dyson sphere? Right, Beetlejuice, I cover that in this video. So, great minds, mate, great minds. We're both thinking of the same thing. I didn't read that before including it in this video. Tino says, thanks, Ben. Your walkabout footage around Holmfirth has brought back nice memories of that weekend. As you no doubt, the whole Pennine area is known as UFO Alley. That's true, Tino. And it's great to see you there, mate. Thank you very much. I think you took it literally doing your reportage between speakers in that stony passageway. I'm surprised you didn't trip over those gorilla statues outside that shop in the town centre. Oh, I didn't. Did I see those? Yeah. Walking with your camera, I couldn't do that and talk at the same time. I'd go arse over tip. Yeah, I know, it's tricky. Rob Smart, get on with it. Got patience, please, Rob. Beautiful Missia. Looks like a genuine stout, Guinness stout at 136.27. The beer all aliens endorse while ignoring Greer because he's a sociopath and the world's greatest narcissist. You would have more credibility if you did not say the moon landing was a hoax. However, there are government-controlled deceptions such as 9/11. All right, that wasn't me drinking that Guinness. Beautiful Missia. I didn't know beers like those particularly. I don't know if Greer's a sociopath, but he's certainly a narcissist. I mean, he's the biggest narcissist in the world. I'd have more credibility if I said didn't say the moon landing was a hoax. Unfortunately, I think it is a hoax, and I'm going to say so. And my credibility, my credibility can find its own level as a result of that. Thanks. And I agree with you about 9/11. Edmund Matthews again says, "Hello Ben. I was thinking, why don't you set yourself a challenge to talk to one MP about UFO disclosure, and then you'll be further along than Steve Bassett, who admits he's only talking to aides of congressmen and senators. Just a thought." I have actually, I think I did write to my MP once about disclosure. I wrote to him about 7/7, the 7/7 bombing. But Bassett, I think that's unfair to Bassett. Bassett has spoken, he's arranged a citizen hearing with 6 former congressmen and senators, and he's doing his best to try and talk directly to the Congress and senators in Washington. And he's also lobbying certain committees, which is very important, and things like that. And he's getting in the media. He's getting in the newspapers that all these guys read. So he's doing more than I ever have. Here we go. Joe Jarling says, Dr. Greer, in my opinion, is more than fame hungry. He's one of the biggest name droppers I've come across. Loves to tell us all about those high flyers he's had dinner with, or whose home he's visited. Yeah, he does, yes. We've got to stop asking ourselves, whose side is he actually on? The powers that be, or the millions of people who are searching for the truth? The ones who fund his lavish globe-trotting lifestyle. I mean, it's true, he does like to rub it in, doesn't he, about all the luxury retreats he's been to. I met up with Lawrence Rockefeller at a ski lodge. I've been to this luxury island off the coast of Australia. And he does that, yeah. I'm not interested in who he socialises with, just what they know. Me, same here. I'm not interested in seeing him remove his jacket on stage and saying, I'm a bodybuilder. Yeah. I've lost faith when he starts making claims about being able to summon alien craft. At this point in time, he should be spilling everything he knows, otherwise he's just another barrier, an extension of the people with a need to know. Unfortunately, if disclosure ever happens, people's confidences will have to be broken at some point. Keep up the good work, Ben. Thanks, Joe. I think you're right about Bassett, although the summoning of the alien craft, I mean, you've got other people, including people who've commented in this box, who say that they have had genuine alien experiences with Greer. So I've got to take that into consideration. Trojan X says, I'm not a fan of Greer. His ego is what lets him down. He's like a Camp Butlin singer without the red coat. And he knows more and correct than any planet kind of attitude. His opinion of aliens are all good. It's an absolute fantasy. He's obsessed with the White House and the CIA. Yeah, aliens are not all good. I've been through that in this film. This is somewhere where I do agree with Kerry Cassidy, and maybe I was unfair to her early on. I mean, I called her egotistical, but maybe I shouldn't have. And it's she actually has a much more streetwise attitude towards the extraterrestrial presence than Greer has, by far. Lance Light says, Gary B is a disinformation agent. Don't let him rile you. Who's Gary B? Oh, is it this bloke? Oh, it's him down here. Gary B. I had a run-in with Gary B down here somewhere. Where was it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Where were we? So I've got to scroll up now. I've just lost my place. So I'll get back to you. I've just lost my place. Okay. Yeah. Gary Williams said, I love the video you did on the materialization medium Helen Duncan. Thanks, Gary. I would like to see a video on Leslie Flint, independent direct voice medium. He lived on Westbourne Terrace, London. I knew him. This is possibly the highest proof of life after death. His recordings are on my YouTube. Well, Gary, thanks very much. Gary also refers to Minnie Harrison, someone I've heard of, materialization medium, and Alec Harris, materialization medium. Let me just have a look at your little channel here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, I think I've seen this. But thanks very much. This is interesting. It's off topic, but it's thanks for putting that on there, because that's a very interesting possibility. The Vancouver guy says, I don't understand this Hapanmo stuff. What the hell is a hospital porter, and what does it have anything to do with UFOs and ufology? Well, this is there's a guy called Jack McLam who had an organisation called Police Against the New World Order. Would you have asked that same question of him? Would you? Gary Heseltine runs a group called Prufos, Police Reporting UFO Sightings. Again, you wouldn't question him on that, would you? So what I'm saying is, if those police can have groups against the New World Order or groups around ufology, why not hospital porters? I was a hospital porter. I was proud of it, and so that's where Hapanmo comes from. And a hospital porter is basically someone in a hospital who deals. They might be called an orderly in some other hospitals. Someone who deals with the logistics of the hospital, moving patients, moving equipment, moving rubbish, moving drugs, and things like that. Anything logistics we do, and it's a very vital job. In fact, it's one of the most important jobs in the entire world. And if you are a hospital porter, you should be proud of it. Right. Goonlove. Hey mate, no disrespect, but have you got asthma? It sounds like you're walking around coughing. I have asthma. Great vid, mate. Thanks, Goonlove. If I have asthma and I'm undiagnosed, I tend to puff and pant when I walk around because I'm moving quickly. I tend to walk quickly. This is a habit I gained in the hospital portering service, where we did have to walk fast, and so I tend to have a fast pace when I walk. Jack Reaper says, no, he has AIDS. He caught it while hospital portering. He was gang raped by some black men who were infected with AIDS, and he was dismissed from the hospital because of it. He was allegedly asking for it as he wore skirts and made up a lot when at work. And makeup. I wore a lot of makeup when I was at work. Really, Jack? Oh dear, he's been watching me. Rob Smart says, you lost me at 5 minutes 55. Yeah, well, Rab, you went and watched the rest of it, the film, didn't you? You don't have to. As I said to this other guy down at the bottom, I said, you can, there's plenty of other things on YouTube you watch. No one is forcing you to sit in front of this screen and watch this video. If you don't like it, bugger off and watch something else. Jack Reaper says, the Hutchison effect is fake and John Hutchison is a proven fraud. He can't produce any results on demand and others can't replicate his results. Not true, Jack. Again, you provide, this is just a statement, there's no rational argument here. I'm making a statement back at you. No, it's not true. He can replicate others replicate his results. Dr. Judy Woods has observed everything he does and has found stuff on 9/11. You see, this is what you want to provide a rational argument. I'll give you a rational answer. Alan Surgeonia, Ben, have got to 2 hours and decided to watch a bit of the Stephen Greer thing you were at. Why did no one ask him why it's taken till now for him to show the letter from 2010? Yeah, good point, Alan, very good. He also said Sarkozy is talking about the French leader Hollande has been in charge in France for a year or two now. He says the same thing he said years ago. He shows off as if he's real smart when he's ignorant. Anyone coming to other countries usually do their homework and keep up with what's happening. He said, our Prime Minister is Cameron Brown. I have no time for Cameron, but I know his name. Greer did say that, didn't he? Cameron Brown. Obviously, he didn't meet David Cameron at that luxury island off Australia. I also know some US politicians that's not showing off. He's a self-opinionated American. I know a couple of Americans and they are nice people and not ignorant and know plenty about the country, etc. So I'm not slagging off Americans. He does bring good points, but he is also in this for profit and his photos were in the internet media and are supposed to be fakes. I think we can look elsewhere for disclosure. Yeah, good points, Alan. Yeah, and that's a fair criticism of. There's no. Yeah, that's a fair criticism of him, and you made some. Araxipome. Ben, there is no reason for you not to accede to my demands. Thank you. Stop the New World Order. The former Roaring Water Bay. That's Roaring Water Bay is back in the comments box, everyone. Oh, yay! Welcome back, Roaring Water Bay. Alan Surgeon says, just read the start of your novel, not having looked at a book for quite a while. I must say I was sucked in. I was annoyed with myself for reading so much. LOL. I want to read the whole book now. I liked it, Ben. Very good. Thanks, Alan. I'm working on the new book. I'll get it to you as soon as I can. And you'll have the whole book to read. Right. Seven Verden Rasmussen Jones. Hi, Ben. Hello, Ben. I've listened to some of this video. Not all yet. I do plan to listen to the whole thing. Got a couple of comments. I know and have a lengthy discussion with several of what may be called UFO luminaries, including Greer, and I do agree that ego is a big issue, and in many ways the shadows the work they are doing. Many and I agree that Greer is no different, have their agendas. I think this is very human. Your comments on the cult issue were also well founded. It is a trap that many get hooked on. The egos get played. I personally do not think that disclosure will happen in the near future, as the controllers, referred to Martin Cannon, will not allow it. Martin Cannon, I've heard that name before. On this issue, Greer is right in his assessment of the dark side of all this. It's about power and money and who has it and how they keep it. This whole stage is just that we, as the witnesses, are simply part of the show. I do agree with your comments on Greer's position that all aliens are positive. That count not be further from the truth, and I have a great deal of personal experience to back that up. I've been at this since 1968 and there's not much that I've not touched at least once. That's interesting, Stephen. Thanks for letting us know. I think you mean it can't be much further, not be further from the truth. I agree. Yeah, I think you've assessed Greer well, and I think you understand that he may not be a willing deceiver. May have just been played, been used. John Thompson says, something doesn't seem right with Greer. He looks like CIA disinfo agent or something. Plus, he hasn't made much progress after 20 some years of ufology.
he looks like one of the tall whites, actually. He's had a near-death experience. He said he had a near-death experience when he was a kid and saw the afterlife because he claims he died. Anyone know how he almost died? Well, Johnny, according to his book, he had an accident. He fell off his bike, I think he said in his book. I've got a copy of his book somewhere. And he became infected. And at the time, he was living in poverty, and he didn't have a chance. He couldn't get to hospital because he couldn't afford to take time off work, and he ended up having this delirium because he got infected. He almost died. The wound got infected where he fell off his bike. Cap Gaines. Any dialogues or debates online with Greer and other personalities? Yes. The aforementioned prize fight with Kerry Cassidy is a good one. There's several others he encounters people he doesn't agree with. But do watch the one with Kerry Cassidy. It's so funny. It's so brilliant. It's very entertaining. Trig Josh. Dr. David Clark was a tutor of mine at the University of Sheffield in 2003. I've seen him in a coffee shop a couple of times, just by chance, in the last year or two. The first time we had a good chat and he remembered me from the course. I think it was called Local Myths and Legends. The second time I saw him in a coffee shop, he snubbed me and he acted as if he'd never known me. Though the expression on his face said different. I thought he was a nice person when he was my tutor, but now I have a different opinion of him. Well, that's a shame, Trig. I mean, he went nasty like that, and I don't like it when people do that to me. Because I know people in my life who act like that, and it's bitchy, you know. So I hope it didn't hurt you too much. Chili Dog Ham Salad says the process of advocacy is not undermined. Government workers make me want to go postal sometimes. Process of advocacy is not undermined. Government workers make me want to go postal sometimes. Right. I don't get you. Sorry, I don't get you there. Farron Gillay. I see your video ban, but the only thing I have got of it is you. You are too fat and you need to exercise. My goodness me, you're so proud of yourself, aren't you? You skinny bastard. I get plenty of exercise, actually. I have a physical job. I was a hospital porter before, now I'm a gardener, and I do a lot of exercising. I walk everywhere, I don't take the bus. I'm not interested if that's all you have to say. Is that really all you have to say about this? What a shame. Edward J-Lo. So using Greer's name to get hits is the new sport. I almost didn't watch because of that, thinking you were another religious comparison freak. Some theories you present are just that. I don't understand that either. Using Greer's name to get hits is a new sport. I don't get that at all. I didn't use Greer's name for that reason. I did a rational analysis of an event I went to that was hosted by Greer. That's what the purpose of this video was. You almost didn't watch. Well, you didn't have to watch. As I said, don't watch if you don't want to. Because of thinking you were another religious comparison freak. I don't know what that is. Some theories you preempt are just that. I don't know what that means. I don't know what preempting means. And Mark Porritt said, wow, over 3 hours this time. Nice one, Ben. Oh, cheers, Mark. Well, I'm glad you like the longer ones because I can't really cut them down any further. Bold, hi Bold. Bold is back. Bold VA5D. Nice to see you back in the comments box, Bold. Good title, Bert. Oh, I'm glad you like it. And Tiberius Kirk says, thanks again, Ben, for posting. Always love your video blogs. Thanks, TK. Oh, he's a good guy, Tiberius Kirk. So is Clausum. Hi, Clausum. Great video, Ben. P.S. Thanks for answering my question. I do agree with your views on Stephen Greer. No problem, Clausum. I'm always happy to answer. Any of you guys have a decent question you want to ask, I'll always do my best to answer them. Xylem at Outland says, genuine laughs watching this and interesting. Thanks, mate. Good for you. Look forward to your book, Ben. All in your own time, even if it takes years. Let it develop with you, like the linear time story itself. I respect any author who can state, don't bother reading my first book, it's rubbish. That's Evansland, yeah. Such candour speaks volumes. Genuine, LOL, mate. Oh, thanks, mate. Cheers for the post, by the way. Seems I cannot pin down the time or funds to bloody get one of these events. Excuses, I know. I'm not guilty of using them. Cheers. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Xylomet, no problem. I'm glad. Mark Conlon says, great video, Ben. Thanks for posting. Thanks. Cheers, Mark.
Stephen Bamber. Hi Stephen, how you doing? Thanks for commenting again. It's a lack of research on the part of Bassett to say it's mere speculation. Anyone who's put time in to research Dr. Judy Wood knows what happened on 9/11. That's true, yeah. I mean, I brought up the subject that Bassett was saying it's speculation to say that the UFO 9/11s were connected. Also, human mutilation seems to the no planes of the UFO world. It does. I mean, this is the thing, Steve. Linda Moulton Howe won't touch it. And Bassett was saying, oh, there's no such thing as human mutilation. For the reasons I explained, I don't agree. Nigel Requiem says, I can't believe that people are bashing Dr. Greer when the likes of Gary Heseltine and other tin pot researchers brief military intelligence and government officials on this subject like Greer has done. I'll take more notice of them. Don't expect some grand announcement from the government on this matter, disclosure. They ain't the people in control of this subject. We don't need official confirmation on this subject. They're already here and have been here for thousands of years. Well, Nigel, I agree with the second half of your statement, or your comment. First couple of sentences I think were unfair. I don't know what you got against Gary Heseltine. Gary, I consider far more credible than Dr. Stephen Greer. If you saw the conference, you saw what it was like. If you have a problem or criticism of that conference, then say so by all means. Stephen Bamber says, I'm about 2 hours in or so. I don't really like this Greer guy or Stephen Bassett. Don't see the appeal, as they're not saying much. However, I do like Richard D. Hall and Andrew Johnson's research. Well, I like Richard D. Hall and Andrew Johnson's research a lot. As you know, I agree with you on what they say about Dr. Judy Wood and the free energy issue. Now, I wouldn't categorise Greer and Bassett together. Bassett is very different from Greer, and I would keep that. Bear in mind that I think Bassett is far more approachable than Greer, and you can talk to him about this a lot more than you can Greer. Dazasas says, couldn't agree more. And Delane says, damn right, David Caton too. Yeah, David Caton is the guy who really has done the foundational research into this animal mutilation issue, and I think that I'm now running out of my memory chips, so I'm now going to change chips. Well, we're almost done now anyway. That was the end of your comments. It's just at the right moment when I ran out of film. My film chip was almost gone, and that was the end of the comments. So, well, thanks all of you for those comments. I really appreciate them. Like I say, even the rude ones, I often have fun replying to, because you can make a joke out of it. And you people who do go on the internet hurling abuse at people you never dare face, as I explained in the previous film, you are risible and you deserve to be ridiculed and made a laugh of. So thanks for those rude comments as well. Keep them coming. I want to take the piss out of you in the next video as well. Now, I think something a little bit extra I wasn't originally going to put in, but it's a little treat. Yeah, because let's have a look one moment. Yeah, I'm going to include some videos that were originally part of my Disclosure City People series, my videos, and they're comedies. They're funny, or at least I think they're funny anyway. And what happened was, I was at the 2012 Exopolitics Expo with a few of my friends, and like you do when you're in Liverpool in the evening, we went out and got drunk after the first day's proceedings, and I had my camera with me because I was of course filming the reportage Disclosure City People, and I decided to do some impromptu street theatre in which I did impressions of various exo-politicians. I wonder if you can guess which ones they are. But anyway, so I'm going to put those in now. So I hope you enjoy them. This is my way of saying thank you very much for all those comments. So here we go with a bit of a laugh, a bit of a comic relief, which we all need after all that heavy stuff.
Take one. Steve Bassett, whose line is it anyway? Here we go.
Truth embargo! Truth embargo! Exopolitics World Network! Sign this petition! Sign this petition! We must end the truth embargo! The Paradigm Research Group! And it's only you! Did I tell you about the Paradigm Research Group?
And what does the Paradigm Research Group consist of?
Me! I'm our only goal. We exist for one objective: the frank, complete, and total disclosure of all UFOs and the end of the truth embargo.
Would that be disclosure with a minimal D
No,
or a
no,
capital
no.
D?
Disclosure with a capital D.
It's got to be with a capital D.
Yes, it
yeah?
does.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of this exopolitics network you've got, where does it expand to?
Clive Anderson, because he looks like me. He's my lookalike. And Grant Cameron, because he talks just like me, really fast.
So, Mr. Hoagland, what kind of haircut do you have?
Well, my very good friend Dr. Judy Wood suggested I get my hair, instead of using hairspray, that I use torsion fields.
Hey,
So I decided I'd go there. I Googled it. Google is your friend.
Mr. Hoagland, can you tell us exactly what a torsion field is?
It's something you use instead of scissors and combs. Don't tell me you've been taken in by this fear porn, have you? Torsion fields are harmless. And they have kept my hairstyle in the same standing wave for the last 20 years. Hello, my name is Richard Dolan. I used to like Nick Pope, but I don't anymore. I've gone off Nick Pope since he did this article in the Daily Mail. I believe in disclosure with a capital D. So the breakaway civilization that have existed since 1947 come back into the fold. What are the thoughts? Greer, Stephen Greer.
Yeah. Right, we're recording, Ben, we're recording.
Good afternoon, my name is Dr. Stephen Greer.
By the way, we're playing Guess the Exopolitics Celebrity.
Oh dear, damn it! Thing is, I'm so wonderful, and I am your messiah that I have to tell you who I am. Where are my bodyguards? Where have they gone? My bodyguards are gone.
We've just went to pump up some more steroids, boss.
Hey, let's go sky watching. You want to go sky watching? Hey, wait a minute. That'll be $3,000, please.
Hey, yeah,
And don't forget, everything you film, even if it's on your own equipment, with your own film, it's copyrighted to me, to the Disclosure Project. Oh, God.
So, that's it. UFO Disclosure 2015. It's over. So have I been wasting my time these previous 12 months and beyond? Because we're not just talking about this year. We're talking about 2014 when I began this series of films. Has it all been for nothing? Should I just left out this whole UFO Disclosure 2015 element? How am I going to cope with disappointment? That's the question. How do we cope with disappointment? Well, there's several ways people cope with it. Some people get angry and they start pointing fingers. They say things like, Stephen Bassett, it's your fault. Stephen Greer, your fault. Richard Dolan, you haven't done enough. Very often the people who do that are those who just, they're the ones who just sit around. People who are very critical of others tend to do very little in terms of activism of their own. They don't make any of their own videos or do any of their own, go to any of their own events and things like that. So, to any one of those who wants to point fingers, even if you want to point fingers at me, you make your own videos and do your own research and do your own activism, okay? And then you make your video, just UFO Disclosure 2015 is not going to happen, rather than sniping and griping at other people. As for Bassett, I mean, there's a running joke. I mean, when I went to Culham, to the nuclear fusion centre, Culham Centre for Fusion Energy, if you remember my video, Return to Culham and Nuclear Fusion Power, those two videos, I learned about the nuclear fusion industry and about how there's a running joke within the pundits who review it, the scientific pundits who review it, is they say, well, when are we going to get nuclear fusion power? And they'll say 20 years in the future. It's always been 20 years in the future, and it always will be. When it first started in the 70s, oh, we'll have it within 20 years. It's now 2015, we're going to have it within 20 years. There's something similar with Stephen Bassett. Whenever you ask him, when are we going to have disclosure, he'll say, oh, in about 3 months' time. We'll have disclosure by this summer. We'll have disclosure by the new year. He is irrepressibly confident and maybe excessively optimistic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being optimistic and hopeful, but I mean, with Steve, I think it's got to the point where there's an element of hubris in this. And people have been actually asking me this on Facebook, say, well, don't forget to mention, you know, people have come to me and they've said things, I think they're unfair to Steve Bassett. They said, I'm fed up with all this, I'm fed up with waiting around, I don't believe that damn word that man says anymore, I'm not interested in, and people have said similar things about Greer. People have said other things about Greer as well, which they don't say about Steve. But Steve Bassett, I think that's unfair too. I think what I've learned is that once you understand that Steve's predictions tend to be incorrect in this way, I tend to take them with a pinch of salt when I hear them. And I first saw Steve Bassett live in, was it October 2009? No, August 2009 at the Beyond Knowledge 2 conference in Liverpool. And I was hooked the moment I heard him say it, because he said, because obviously this was just he said, oh, don't worry, we're going to have disclosure before Christmas. Certainly before the end of the year, I would say we'll have disclosure. Of course, that was 2009, never happened. Steve never guarantees things, though. He never says, it's going to happen, I can guarantee it. He never does that. And I wouldn't expect him to. Richard Dolan is more cautious. He says, it probably won't be within the next 5 years. More likely to be within the next 20. Timothy Good also says, he just says, it'll be within my lifetime, that's all I can say, he says. And Tim's quite an old guy now, so that gives you hope. And Timothy Good is one of the most scientific of these ufologists, exopoliticians. But I think we should just give Steve Bassett a break, okay? He's doing what he can. He is working hard. He believes in this. This guy was a pro tennis player. He could have gone to Wimbledon. But he gave it up to do this. What we've got to do is we are going to have to be patient. I mean, this is the thing. You could give up and it'll happen tomorrow. Then you'll be kicking yourself, won't you? So I would say, let's proceed. Let's persevere. 2016 is another year, but it's only one day after New Year's Eve 2015. So it's only there's only 24 hours difference between one day and the next. Less. There's a moment's difference between the last second of 2015 and the first second of 2016, when the clock strikes and we all sing Auld Lang Syne and toast each other with champagnes. Not this champagne, unfortunately. So, is there going to be a series of films, UFO Disclosure 2016? And you'll say to me, Ben, do you mean it this time? Well, again, I don't guarantee anything. And there's the issue that I've always had. I've always been in two minds about this. I've always had feelings that willing disclosure, as I call it, could not possibly work. And I've described these in previous videos. We're dealing with a secret that is bigger than big. Steve, I think, underestimates the implications and the enormity of what he's talking about. And I think he also doesn't quite grasp the fact that I believe the political structures of our world, the political structures of our society, do not have the capacity to integrate a revelation of this magnitude. I mean, the newspapers they go into a tizzy whenever you know, someone builds a duck pond in their garden when they're in Parliament. You know, this is I think that if Cameron or Obama stood up and said, I've said this before, haven't I? But if they sat there and they said, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, or my fellow British people, my fellow Britons, UFOs are real. Yes, they are, and we've always known about it. We've known about it for almost a century now, and yes, we just thought we'd let you know as well that we know. And yes, we forgot to tell you. It kind of slipped our minds. Well, actually, it didn't slip our minds. We kept it from you, but it was for your own good. We kept it from you for your own good. We had your best interests at heart. Actually, we didn't. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to confess we didn't have your best interests at heart. The fact we kept this secret from you has resulted in untold suffering for the death of how many millions? From starvation, from poverty? How about the destruction of the rainforests and the poison of the oceans and through environmental destruction and the dirtying of our air? Could have all been prevented. We have told you, we know that. We know that. We're not going to try and run away from that fact. But I still hope you will find it in your hearts to forgive us. I really, really do. We will make it up to you, I promise you. We'll bring back school milk. There we are. Thank you very much. What do you think your Auntie Joan or your Uncle Alfie sitting at home with their glass of sherry or their cup of tea and their biscuits on the table with a TV on in the corner, what do you think would happen to them if they heard that? How would they respond? Well, it depends on the kind of people they are, obviously. But the majority of people, I think, I don't want to sound arrogant here, and like you'll never hear me use the word sheeple, and I don't talk about things like, I don't use language like that. But what happened? You see, it's not just the implications of the fact. It's the fact, of course, that the reason for the cover-up in the first place, the truth embargo, was, well, there's many-fold, but one of the reasons for its continuous is the fact that it's the connection between UFOs and free energy. The fact that the introduction of free energy in society would make the New World Order impossible. It would mean that the Illuminati could not have their New World Order. It means that governments would lose control of the people. The control of energy is a vital source of their power over, of society, of holding the society as they envision it together. This is not the society I envision, it's the society they envision. Now, I'll be discussing more about that in Swansea, so if you can get to my gig in Swansea, please do. And I've made other videos about this, but it's also it's simply the fact that they lied on such a massive scale for so long. I mean, Watergate is nothing to this. I mean, Stanton Friedman, bless him, he's a great man, but he uses the term cosmic Watergate. Watergate? It's a little white fib compared to this. So is the Iran-Contra affair, so is the weapons of mass destruction. It's all, these lies are minuscule in proportion with this. They're insignificant, they're off the scale. We're talking, and they know that, the government know that. So that again is why I doubt whether official UFO disclosure is possible. But you see, my heart and my head say two different things. I can't ignore that little voice at the back of my head that says it might be possible, it might happen. And maybe the window hasn't shut just yet, this window of opportunity that Bassett talks about. A lot is actually happening in the year to come, which is interesting on the UFO front. We've already had, I mean, like I said, we've already had various interesting, as I explained in this series of films, interesting references to UFOs. And attempts to cut on very bad references, which obviously intended to cover them up. Interestingly, that Pepsi advert that I told you about, that Pepsi decoding, was it Black Dark Knight decoded Pepsi advert? which had this very obvious reference, a very well-researched reference to conspiratorial ufology in it. That was unique in many ways. As I said, it was very high budget. It had some famous actors in. It was the first advert that's partly filmed from the International Space Station as well. Some of the shots are filmed up there. That's another first for Pepsi. But 2016 is actually important in some areas of UFO, and I'm glad we've had a chance to explore UFO history, because as I've explained, 2015 is the 40th anniversary of the Gary Initiative, which has not been marked by anything other than this film and my upcoming article in UFO Truth magazine. But also, it's also the next year, 2016, is the 20th is a 20th anniversary of two other major events. In January, it's 20 years since we had the Virginia incident, and in the summer, it's 20 years since we had the alien interview, and I've covered these events in the Hapanwo. I've covered these events in the Hapanwo, the main Hapanwo blog. So 20 years since those two events is very important. So it could be significant that 2 decades have passed since these major UFO events, and they're not going to go unmarked by people within our community. And I have made plans to mark those double decades. We also have a US presidential election, or in other words, the selection of Hillary Clinton to be the next US president. Now that's going to happen sometime, I can't remember what date it is next year, but basically the primaries are underway in a few weeks. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders will probably be left. This always happens at these elections. You get some sort of outcast maverick who's popular for a while, like the Ron Paul phenomenon. So we have Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, these outside idealists who are currently very popular. Something will happen to knock them back into the shadows again, and the chosen ones will be put forward for the major race, the major election, which Hillary Clinton is going to win. It is good news, right? If she wins, I will redo my presidential UFO disclosure video. I promise I will redo it. Say when she wins. If she was. When she wins, I will redo it, and I'll do it in drag. I hope that won't be as controversial as my Barack Obama one with blackface makeup. But I'll get a dress, I'll get makeup, I'll get a wig, and I will do it in drag. I'll pretend to be Hillary Clinton doing the UFO disclosure thing. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? So my basic message is be cautious, okay? But be tolerant of people like Steve. Don't expect too much of him. He does a good job. I don't agree with everything he says. I sometimes think what he wants is impossible. In fact, most of the time I think that. But he might be right, and there's a part of me that can't let it go. There's something so it's a thought that is so appealing. It's almost like it's something so beautiful and so tasty that I can't get it out of my mind that we could actually have willing disclosure. And I've never wanted to be proved wrong more, ever in my life, than I want to be proved wrong on this. I want to be able to open this thing, which I will do on camera, on that day. So we should persevere. That's my message is, bad luck, it didn't happen. I'm going to keep, those videos are staying where they are. I'm not taking them down, they're staying up. I'm not going to change the titles. The titles are staying as they are. And well, it's just the fact that it didn't happen. We just got to wait now to see what happens next year. And the new year is a new opportunity. It's a new beginning. It's a chance for everyone to make New Year's resolutions. That's why you have these New Year's resolutions and things like that. To take a step back, take a deep breath, and start again. I know it's an artificial date in the middle of winter, and it's not in line with any of the natural cycles of the Earth. I know that, but it is in people's heads and in our society. The New Year's Day has that significance. It has that significance of a break-off point and then starting again. So don't give up. Let's keep going. I will be making at least one film with the title, which include the words UFO Disclosure 2016. I will be making at least one video with that title. It probably won't be as many as this one, depending on circumstances. I probably won't make 12 of them, with an average of about 3 hours long, but I'll make some. In the meantime, it remains for me to say I really appreciate your support over the last year. Those who have followed this series of films, those who have watched them, commented, shared, even though I've thought about what I've said and have talked about it with other people, I really appreciate you doing that. It means a lot to me. All the comments you've given me, all the nice comments, even the nasty ones that have been interesting, because it gives me a chance to ridicule and to bite back. The live comments thing I quite like. I think it's a good idea. I've done it on other videos as well. You guys have really been great, and I couldn't have done it. It wouldn't have been the same if it hadn't been for you. It would have been much more difficult to make these films without you writing to me and telling me how much you appreciate them. It means a lot. It really, really does. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. I made my little video saying Happy Christmas, and I hope you had a really, really nice one, all of you. And I wish you a very, very happy New Year. Whether we get to UFO Disclosure or not, I want all the best things you've ever wanted to happen to you in 2016. So thank you very much for watching Hapanmo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.